welcome to this week's episode. Oh, sorry, I might have started early. Hey, everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Talking Landscape Photography. We've got a great episode lined up for us this week on the wonderful land of New Zealand, a little cousin to the east across the pond. I took a trip back there in October of 2023 with Wellington-based photographer Michael McGee, who's a very creative, fantastic photographer over there. I've admired his work for a long time. So I teed up a trip with him, was there for 16 days and got to explore much of this beautiful country that I'm sure many of us have seen lots of photos of. We've got Michael on as a special guest tonight to go through some of his own photos from that trip and also some of his insight from being a local down in Wellington, New Zealand. And we've also got special guest William Patino joining us this week, which we're really excited to have to offer some of his own expert insight, living near Fiordland and exploring every nook and cranny of New Zealand that he can.
And you guys caught up with him on your trip too, didn't you?
Yeah, Michael and I got a little message from Will as he was actually away for most of our trip. It was a funny sort of lineup. We swapped. Will went over to Sydney for workshops and we went over to New Zealand, and then thankfully managed to line up in the last 2-3 days of the trip, I think, and a massive snow dump came through, and Will took us up into the mountains of Fiordland for a pretty special morning. But we'll get onto more of that later. I think some photos and stories. But yeah, we've got Luke with us tonight. We've also got Paul, local from live news from New Zealand as well, over in the homeland. So welcome, Paul, too.
Yeah, kia ora, brothers. Good to have you on. And shot this one last week from the Grand Lady of Aotearoa. She showed herself beautifully. I just run a 10-day workshop down around the South Island, and then I just did a 10-day workshop of my own afterwards, all the way up the West Coast. And pretty magic to be here and be home in Aotearoa again. And I waved at Will briefly when I drove past him. But I'm looking forward to hearing all your stories tonight, fellas.
Yeah, fantastic. It must be good to get back, Paul, as a native. But yeah, I think Tassie's overtaken your New Zealand passion a little bit, has it? Or how does it feel, kind of coming back to New Zealand after being in Tassie for so long?
Well, I think I spent 5 years living in the South Island and Te Waipanamu, as I call it over here, and Southwestland has been a little bit more of a mystery to me, and it was the last thing and the last place to spend time was walking the Kepler track and being up in Fiordland country, and I was just thinking, oh, this is an area I really want to spend some more time in. So it was beautiful to come back, and I think the West Coast in particular has so many nooks and crannies and places that I've been wanting to go back to. That I last visited with my father a long, long time ago when I was pretty young. So a lot of my trip this last couple of weeks was a bit of a testament to him.
Oh, I think Paul's been muted.
Yeah, he's been cut out.
I calm the phone. Shoot the guy.
I was trying to work out why your video's not showing up, but I think it could just be the latency. Sorry about that.
Very, very special weekend. And it's been to now, like, it was a very special event happened for a lot of us in this sphere. And we'll have a chat about that now, hey? Does anyone look up in the sky on Saturday night? It was on fire.
Oh, yeah. It was a little bit hard to miss. Yes, it was a very chaotic, very interesting weekend all round. Definitely down in here in Tassie, it was just completely, I think the only appropriate word's probably bonkers or something like that for how big the show was. And just talking to my brothers who went and saw it in the Barossa Valley over that time. So, very, very far north. I got a friend that photographed it in Magnetic Island up near Townsville. Mind you, it was a tiny little sliver on the horizon, but it's sort of pretty amazing to think you could see it from up in those sort of latitudes.
I think Michael and I were both clouded out, unfortunately.
No.
So we were just seeing a whole lot of stories and photos and just kind of turning a little bit green. That's all right. I've said to a couple of people, it's sometimes you're that guy, sometimes you get to watch everyone else be that guy. So you take
I spent about 7 hours. I spent 7 hours scouting locations to shoot that night. They're probably going to be pretty unique and probably not done before at that level, because they were places that would have lit up like a Christmas tree but maybe not without the strength of that level of aurora. And I had 4 places lined up, and I saw the cloud forecast, and every single one of them was going to be screwed. I was like, oh, fuck. So I drove like 4 hours north of this tiny little cloud window for like 2 hours, and then I was boxed in on a northwest corner with no more road to go north. And I got 2 hours in before the cloud hit. And I think one of my favorite shots was the one Will took. I saw it in your stories, Will. It was like a flowing river in the foreground with mountains and aurora, and I was like, holy crap, it was
Yeah.
beautiful. And you must have the happiest clients in the universe, mate. Out there on the job when
Oh
that
yeah,
happened.
what luck that is. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a pretty wild one. It kicked off a bit early. Like it started at 5 a.m. That morning, which kind of caught us off guard. Obviously, we weren't up and ready, and I was just like, oh, I hope this holds out till tonight because I knew it was going to be clear. And thankfully, the part of the workshop was down my way in Fiordland, so I was obviously, rubbing my hands with anticipation because I know the place like the back of my hand. And long story short, obviously it held out, and I was managed to get everyone at a good location during the blue hour, so there was no stress or anxiety of setting up in the dark. And this show started in the blue hour. You could already see to the east the magenta. I've never seen the magenta that bright, even in the blue hour. And it just didn't stop, and we pretty much went from 6:30 p.m. till about 1:30 in the morning. And it's so cool to share that with the clients, and then to be in the local area and to be able to just go, all right, we've got the shot here, guys. I'm going to take you somewhere else. And we got it somewhere else. And I just kept on. It was like a kid in a candy store. And because it wasn't just south, in fact, it was actually better to like the northeast and to the west. My mind was just blown thinking, hang on, like I can actually get the aurora here in all the possibilities just open right up. So I just tried to take advantage of it and just hit as many locations as possible. So I'm still processing the shots now. It's something that for me, it takes a while to process these because the light is obviously bizarre and the colors are, all over the place. So I'm just kind of taking my time. But yeah, put a bit of a glimpse up on the story just to show, because a lot of people are asking about it. So I thought I'll show a glimpse. And yeah, I've definitely got about 5 to 6 like portfolio shots, which it just means so much to me to be able to get it here. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And Fiordland, this is where I've based my career. It's my passion. And to just capture it under this light. And the other part that I'm stoked on is just all the people here, like friends and family, that were able to get out and see it and see it properly. Because, you get a lot of skeptics that think, oh, you need a camera to see it. And yeah, even today when I was at the school picking up my kids, I was saying to all the other parents and friends, did you see it? And everyone's like, man, it was wild. And yeah, so I'm just stoked for everyone that got to see it. And I do feel sorry for the boys. You didn't, I'd be absolutely gutted, but there should be more to come. Who knows? I know it was
well, they
historic,
had the biggest X-class flare of the whole solar cycle today. So not that it was necessarily Earth directed, but it's still firing off all sorts of things. So you never really know these days.
You never know. We're still in the maximum, so we've got a couple more years of potential. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you too, Will. I think one of my favorite things was hearing kids laughing, listening, watching the aurora, because it kicked in down here, when it got dark at 6:30, so all families could go out and watch it, and it was calm, it was clear, it was on a Saturday night, moonless, not much cloud, like it was kind of like a perfect setup, really. So it was very fortunate.
Yeah. My wife took the kids out just in the backyard, and we got some friends around, and I had to go out obviously, but I said to Renee, my wife, like, you got to get out. Like, I was going to get her to come into the national park, and then I said, if it's clear at home, just stay at home. And it cleared right up. And yeah, apparently the kids were, this is the best night of my life, and they were dancing around. And yeah, just epic, man. So cool. Just stoked. Even at the grocery store today, I'm saying to some of the people, did you see the aurora? Like, I'm just so pumped about the whole thing. Just amazing.
Nice to be able to share it. And I have to ask too, Will, did you manage to dig out a tripod to do the shots, or how did that all work?
I was telling Ben, my actual tripod was left in my car because I was using it for a YouTube video or something. And then for the workshop, I pick a van up in Queenstown. So I left my car in Queenstown. That's where my tripod was. So all I had was this old thing that a client left behind about 4 years ago, and literally the base that I had just doesn't quite fit. It's not quite an Arca Swiss, so the whole night I was battling, the camera literally falling off.
That's so frustrating.
At least it was me and not a client. It was
Wow.
hard. And one of the legs is broken, and look, it was a bit of a pain, but
Oh, that's no, I'm glad to hear it all worked out. That's awesome.
yeah. Just on that note, though, I did easily get handheld shots,
Yeah.
easily when it was firing off. I was just getting the clients, behind the scenes, and no problem at all. Like
Yeah.
ISO is still relatively low, just 0.6 seconds snipering away.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
crazy.
some of my time lapses are at 0.6 as well, so yeah, I can definitely identify with that. Yeah.
Oh, unbelievable.
I think what
Really
I find
amazing.
most interesting about it is people around the whole earth who never would normally have an opportunity to see it have seen it, and the kind of images I've seen from Central America and backyard England and places that would never relatively have access visually to it have seen it, and it's sort of put it on notice for the almost the whole world, and it's quite amazing that something that people like Lukey have got me into over the years, and I always thought it was a bit of a fringe thing. Is it's kind of just come out into this bigger sort of main fray of the whole planet, really. I think the whole planet to woke
There's
up
going to
and
be
took notice of
a
this.
whole new raft of Aurora chasers. It's going to be the people that missed out, and then the people that did see it and got hooked. So I think it's going to be quite interesting for that.
The only downside is probably like you boys. I've been bombarded with questions and even people literally pulling me aside in the street, like, "Is Aurora going to be out tonight?" And I'm like, "Oh, guys, that was historic." Like, sorry to say, but yeah, so it's
Yeah, I
not
think
that common.
the next night I've heard that in Adelaide there were people out lining the streets in the southern
Yeah,
sort of areas where like Aurora lookouts waiting for the show the night after, and so it might be a while before they realise how unusual this event was, but hopefully fingers crossed there's something around the corner that's of equal size or even more, although you don't want it to get too big. It's actually pretty hard to photograph when they're that big. So
oh, when it
uh,
was overhead doing the Corona, it was like that. That's when I just went handheld and I just started laughing.
yeah,
And I was like, there's no point trying to shoot this properly. It's just too much. Like,
yeah.
I've never seen, like, I've seen it 30 plus times in Iceland, but I've never seen just the overall glow so bright. And looking at mountains, the mountains here with the snow was just going literally red and magenta. I just, again, goosebumps thinking about it,
Mm,
man.
yeah,
Just
no,
crazy, so bright, the whole thing. Yeah, unbelievable.
I think
And
so. I was listening to the boys all day frothing like Benjo and Luke and Andrew and Nick, and they were all gearing up for the biggest night ever. And I was looking at the forecast thinking I'm just going to miss the whole thing, but I was enjoying the froth building up. But it ended up being out of all us five, I was the first one to see it because I was in New Zealand,
yeah,
and
that's
I was
true.
just like, "Boy, the sky's on fire!
Yeah,
It's every
I
single
think there was a few
direction
expletives
is
in
over
there.
my
I
head."
couldn't quite decode the message. It was
I was like, I'm shooting straight
it
north,
got our
the
excitement up.
Aurora, and it was like the direction wise, it was 360 degrees, and and
Well,
then
what
I
I loved
looked.
was it meant that you could like all of your sunrise and sunset spots were cut suddenly in play, so you could
exactly.
really. And then the other cool thing was everyone was going to the Aurora location, so then you could go to a sunset or sunrise spot and shoot there instead, and had it to yourself, and you could still get the Aurora. So that was quite nice to. It's a nice one if there ever is another big one to think that way, especially if you're
Mm.
down a bit further south. So yeah, that was
The
pretty
client
cool.
of ours was on the Tarkon workshop with Paul and I, who lives up at Rainbow Beach, Queensland, so near Fraser Island, and yeah, he shot it from there. Big pink
Oh,
glow.
Rory,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
I thought
roaring.
I saw Ignacio Palacios got one from Uluru as
Uluru.
well.
Yeah,
Rory.
Yeah,
yeah, just
quite a nice
just
shot.
so. Would
I
have been
even saw
nice.
one
Would have
from
been nice.
tunnel view at Yosemite, just the classic tunnel view, and it's just
Uh,
flooding in above our Capitan, and
oh,
that just
Yeah,
makes me
right.
smile, man. Like seeing the icons, Uluru with it.
Mm.
That's just like the word historic just keeps coming to mind for me. I just think that's what it was. Historic
yeah.
night for the whole world.
Yeah,
How
I
old
had
is
a weird experience too. I had one of my shots go completely or posts go completely viral, and I think it managed to reach about 25 million people just on one Facebook post. So that kept me very busy for a period of time, and probably a bit too distracting for the main show, unfortunately. But it was really nice to think that so many people connected with a series of shots that I took, and that very weird feeling when it just goes global like that. So. But
I
yeah,
saw a cool meme the next day. It was like Homer Simpson in the bar, and it was like me when I wake up, and it's just flooded with these Southern Lights.
Aurora pics everywhere.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
it's
saw that one. Yeah, that was a good one.
I think I shared that actually. I was feeling that meme. Oh dear.
There's
Yeah, that
this
was a beautiful
coastal
one.
road around the bottom of Wellington that is it's a very kind of scenic route. And from where I was shooting, you could just see this convoy of four-wheel drives and their lights just beaming around, like, like 10 Ks off in the distance, just like hundreds of them just backed up on this coastal road. I don't know if they got much because of all the bloody lights and the cloud for that matter, but it was pretty funny, man.
It was really interesting too. I went to a car park. It was a bit like that. It was packed out, but you walk out of the car park down the main road onto the beach, for example, and there's people congregated within the 50-meter radius of where the walk is, and then the beach is pretty much empty. So even at these sort of locations, you only have to walk a little bit, and you can get away from the masses. And there was also there's a seal called Neil the seal that's a bit notorious down in Tassie and kind of gets in the way of people's cars and things. And he managed to go across the middle of a road and block a whole bunch of Aurora chasers from getting through for a while. So that was an interesting story as well.
So I was chatting with a couple of people from like Vancouver sort of area, and they were saying on the way into the Rockies and all that kind of thing, people parked in the middle of the highway, like complete like road blockages because people just stopped cars so they can watch the Aurora and shoot. Just mayhem. Yeah. So yeah, definitely stop the world, but also work the world up simultaneously. Yeah, pretty insane. So next time, we'll get it.
It's all good. Like I say, Ben, that quote you had is the best. Like sometimes it's your turn and sometimes it's not, and if you're out there enough and put yourself out there enough, you'll get what you're looking for.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, just the last one I'll mention is Mark he's currently in the Patagonian fjords where he goes each year, and they got it there, and I've seen a preview of what he got, and not only is this going to be the first ever Aurora photos probably ever captured in that area, but it's pretty special. And to think that he got clear skies, the same as me, like even you guys in Tassie, like at these latitudes down in the roaring 40s, the likelihood of getting the clear skies, and yes, I'm really blown away that he got the clear skies there and also captured it above these beaches filled with icebergs and then snow-capped peaks up behind it. Yeah, it's mind-blowing. Yeah, so keep an eye out for those.
It's hard enough for them to see the Aurora in Ushuaia, let alone much further north there in Patagonia. So
exactly.
It's colossal to think that we're getting it there. So he was getting it there. So.
All right.
Can't wait to see those ones.
Well, we might introduce Michael as our guest. So Michael's a Wellington local, and I was very excited to tee up a trip with him last year, and he's got a very unique, distinct style that I haven't seen from too many people, and he captures some of those New Zealand rainforests in a way that is just really masterful, and I've really admired his work for a while, and his eye for intimates and abstracts is absolutely fantastic. So welcome, Michael. We'd love to hear a bit more about yourself and maybe how you got into photography, what you do during the week, and just anything else that you think might be relevant.
It was awesome having you around. I for the most part like just shoot by myself, as probably most of us do, but it was really, really cool. Shooting with someone, traveling with someone that like is like totally on the same wavelength. So that was such a good time. Lots of memories, lots of stories. What have I been doing? I'm 27. I've been shooting kind of since maybe landscapes like 7 or 8 years, maybe nature stuff for that sort of about that time. I day to day I do real estate photography. It's like the lamest sort of bloody photography that there is, but it pays the bills. So I for the most part I've been shooting around Wellington, entirely in New Zealand at this point. I think for me, my work is about spaces that I'm connected to and appreciate and spend time in, and are meaningful to me.
Which really comes across as well. Like it's a very there's things that you notice in the landscape that goes far beyond what your average person would notice, which you guys will see once we start looking at Michael's work. It's something that I've really admired for a long time about your photos.
Thanks, man. I think recently, like as again we'll see in the work, but like trees are kind of what I've really been vying with at the moment. It's kind of been my main focus for a while. A bit of coastal stuff here and there, and like water abstracts and bits and pieces, things that I've seen, been inspired by from seeing other people's work. There's so much awesome stuff out there at the moment. Such a variety of work of stuff to get inspired by. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Now, something for both Michael and Will. New Zealand is really just a country just full of infinite potential. Like there is so much vastly unexplored land. There's also so many well-explored places that are very beautiful and popular for a reason. How do you guys like try balancing, capturing such a beautiful country and doing justice to it, while also just like trying to stay fresh? Like how much effort do you go to explore those new places and find something fresh and different, and what's your sort of process for doing that?
Mhm. I think for me it's just returning to local spots. I mostly shoot in and around Wellington just because it's easy. I have I work a 9 to 5, and it's I have the weekends for the most part, or an evening after work. There's the odd time where I'd get an extended weekend and I'd boost up to the central North Island, or a really special occasion I'd go down south. But like checking out the icons takes time. So making the most of the time that I have is just going out the back door and seeing what I see.
Yeah. And it must be awesome to be able to go 45 minutes to an hour or a couple of hours and just have some really, really specky stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky for sure.
Yeah. And you got to work for it. Like, some of the places we visited, we'll look at some of the photos, but they're not necessarily easy, but it's, it's easier than, suburbia in Sydney. But it's a really beautiful place. And Michael was showing me, he was running me through sort of how he studies like the topographic maps and everything there, and the vegetation and all that kind of thing. So there's lots to it. Will, what would you say you have to say about that?
I guess similar to Mike, like a lot of what I do is still local. Like recently I purchased just a small little boat, and I'm using the boat now to get out on the lake where I live, because Lake Tiana is the second largest lake in the country. It's just huge. It's got 3 main arms which branch off the body of the lake, and these arms are 20 kilometers in length. So think of a valley that's 20 k's long. You've now got that with a body of water. So then either side of these arms of the lake is just literally innumerable streams coming down, other side valleys, mountains. So lately I've just been using the boat to explore different angles, hidden beaches, but also hidden waterfalls. So probably the last thing I did was just a couple of weeks ago, and it was just a matter of 30 minutes on the boat and then following up a creek for about 1 kilometre, obviously no track or anything, all because I saw on the topo something that resembled like potential for a waterfall, and it ended up being like a nice, quite a narrow gorge, beautiful waterfall in there. And I'm completely confident that there's probably less than 10 humans that have ever stood in this place, because even if you're a hunter or a fisherman, it just wasn't conducive for that. Like you'd hunt around there, but you wouldn't follow up a narrow gorge for just no reason. So that's just an example of one way to do it, and it just doesn't stop. You could literally drive on a main road and then just simply park and walk for half an hour, and same thing, you're now standing in and looking at trees which probably haven't been photographed. And so I find that inspiring. It's always inspiring. Obviously icons are inspiring, but I love that element of it's just the call of the unknown. I just get inspired by that. The problem, it just gets harder when it's more. So that's forests and waterfalls. That's relatively easier to access faster. But when you say, all right, I want to get big peaks, that's where Google Earth is going to come into play, topos, and then getting out to those valleys now becomes, it's either multi-day walking, or you'll have to incorporate the boat or a heli to a boat and then boat to hiking, and it just becomes multifaceted. And then the expense goes up, the time away. blah blah blah. So they're harder to pull off and not done as frequently. But I've been fortunate to do all of that type of stuff. But yeah, definitely my favorite thing is just what I described before. Just kind of the local haunts, and just spending a good day, just kind of walking or driving or boating, and then just bush bashing. And often when I've done that, you just come across something that maybe wasn't even the goal. It was on the way to the goal. And you go, wow, I never would have expected, this little moment here, the light hitting that fern. It was all about that moment. Even though I come here for that hidden waterfall, I actually like this. That's what I love about it. And you don't encounter that unless you actually just get outside and just get amongst it. I love that part of photography.
Yeah.
How do you make time for that? Just out of interest, Will, too, do you deliberately schedule time between your workshops to go out and do unique stuff? Because it can be quite hard if you've got a lot of commercial things in mind to then also separate yourself from that and then also have time out in the field as well.
Yeah, my workshop's made, I run one group one a month in autumn and winter. So maybe 7 or 8 group ones per year, and then lots of privates scattered throughout. But yeah, there's always plenty of time to do that. If anything, it's just probably balancing family life amongst all of it too. And yeah, I don't want to go sidetrack things, but yeah, this is something I battle with sometimes is having the desire and pre-visualizing what you want to achieve with your work and trying to, keep, pushing your art. And then it's easy to, when you're doing that, you start to put everything up on this high pedestal. And I just keep seeing roadblocks all the time. It's going to take too long. The weather's not right. The this, the that. And yeah, no, so that's probably the main challenge for me. I can find the time relatively easily, and I've got a very supportive wife, and there's always openings between workshops, but sometimes it's me getting in my own head saying, all right, that could take 3 days. Is it really worth it? Like, is that going to work? Oh, and then I'll just go around in circles and not end up getting out. That's probably the biggest thing I run into. But yeah, like half of my time is kind of just doing YouTube and just shooting for me, So there's always ways to do it. If anything, I'll just turn it into a YouTube video, and that helps me justify the time a little bit more. Not that there's any real reward in doing that monetarily, but it kind of doubles up then. So it's not just going out just to, spend 4 days to get one photo. But yeah, it's a balancing act, mate. You know how it is. It's
Yeah, no, it's interesting to hear that you're certainly not alone with all of that. That's all right. So I'm not, yeah, it's good. All right. We can continue. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can imagine that's a bit of a tough balance, but Fiordland's just such a mecca that yeah, I've been seeing your boat and your stories, and just immediately as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, that'd be perfect for Will's. So
yeah,
awesome.
Open up so many opportunities.
Yeah, it really has. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised I put it off this long, but sometimes I was just like, oh no, no, and then suddenly I was like, hang on a minute, like this is what I need right now. It's just going to open up there's only so many roads in Fiordland, probably 2, and I've explored them extensively and gone off trail off that extensively, and then the next thing is to get further afield. It's like I said before, it just gets logistically very expensive and quite difficult. So at least the boat now has opened up that 2 expansive lakes, and then there's years worth just off these lakes alone. But the one downside is the wind. I've learned very quickly lakes can definitely get a bit of swell going. So aside from, as long as there's not too much wind, then I'm good to go. But geez, it can get pretty rough out on these lakes. It's intimidating.
Have you had any experience with using a boat before this, or was this your first time?
Yeah, first time. So I'm straight into it, and you don't need a license here, which is funny because in Australia you need a skipper's license, and that's just going to slow down the whole process. So here it was just get on the water and you figure it out more or less. So yeah, obviously I just take it
deal with
slow and steady, figure it out pretty quick though. Yeah, no, it's been good. Just start off on the calm weather, but inevitably we had some pretty rough weather the other day, and yeah, it's good for the nerves.
It'd be nice to not have to do with salt water for cleaning it off, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so deep in this lake, like literally I'll be 15 meters from the shoreline and it'll be 80 meters deep.
Wow.
So you don't have to worry too much about suddenly hitting a sandbar or anything like that. It's all glacially carved out. So it's quite intimidating actually how deep it is. The only real enemy is just going to be running out of fuel out there because, like I said, some of these distances are pretty vast. So I'm topping up, a good 3 to 4 20-liter tanks of fuel and bringing those out, obviously, with the beacon and everything like that.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. I'll have to look out for some videos about that.
Yeah, I got one or two on the YouTube, but there will definitely be more to come for sure.
Nice.
Well, we might start looking at some photos. So, Michael, if you wanted to screen share, we'll start going through some photos that we took on our trip as well, and then also any highlights that you might have just on your website or anything like that you might want to show. But yeah, we'll start with the trip.
Can you enable screen sharing? Host disable
Oh yeah,
participants.
that's my responsibility, everybody. Thanks for reminding me.
Right.
There we go. You should be all good to go, sir.
That working? Share. Right.
There we go. Yep.
Hey, there we are. All right.
Beautiful.
Cool. This was I'll start with these two here. These were a couple of images early on in our trip. These are still when Ben and I were in Wellington. This is up in just the hills, the mountains north of Wellington. The old Goblin Forest, which is these are both part of like a long-term-ish project that I guess I've been working on. Capturing these goblin forests in the high elevation hills. I think I think they're fascinating. The way the trees just like warp and the character with them.
What's the species of tree?
Plants there?
We've got a few people talking. What was that?
What's the species of tree? Is it the same kind of tree you'd see in other places, but it's actually warped because of the environmental conditions, or is it a species of tree that
so it's still beech and mountain beech, which grow at the higher elevation. Lower elevation, you get red beech and other types that don't. These are warped and twisted because of the environmental conditions. Yeah. It's like
would it be like getting snow load and stuff like that?
They do get snow, not all year round though.
So that sometimes that can contort and twist things too if it sort of had to bear that sort of load for a bit.
We keep calling them Dr. Seuss trees when we were in there. Just in my photos as well. Like they're just the most wild looking upside down things. And there's some that I've included for BTS that weren't like good for actual photo compositions, but just as little memories. They just these big lumps like 10 meters off the ground that they just look bizarre, like these big, like almost like beads in tree form.
Like twisty popsicle like things run like dreams.
You're just waiting for like a fairy to jump out or something, isn't it? But with that sort of
most bizarre environment.
The sort of grasses or the plants in the foreground and growing around lower. I love that sort of contrast. You get the sort of softness of the mosses on the trunks, and then the sort of a more of a stark, sharper sort of shape in the ground, and nice color sort of range there as well. The different greens. It's just very appealing.
Cheers, Luke. Yeah, we were lucky to get a little bit of fog this day. We actually went up so we climbed to about 1,100 meters elevation from basically sea level. We went one day and then we had a rest day, and then Ben was like, "We got to get back up there." So
so we had this first day.
Like Ben at all.
We had this first day, and we were meant to go to the South Island. I think maybe 2 days after that. And I was like, we are delaying our ship over to the South Island because I needed to have another chance of shooting this area. We paid the fee to delay our boat trip over, and we ended up not doing one hike because we had less time in the South Island as a result. But it was 100% worth it because, I was like, I came into this and I was like I don't know, the equivalent of me 5 years ago that loved shooting seascapes. You rock up and there's a crazy sky going off and you don't even know what to do because you're so overwhelmed by how amazing it is. That was me in this forest. And it was stressful, but mind blowing. Just trying to capture the chaos. Yeah, because every tree is crazy. As you can see here, there's not like an obvious, like this is a subject tree or anything like that. It's just all nuts. So that's something that I really admire about Michael's shooting is he's very good at that depth based shooting and scene based shooting rather than like necessarily subject based shooting in the forest, which is something I had to really learn on the spot. Well, not learn on the spot, but sort of wasn't something a muscle that I'd practiced quite as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One with that being your Octopus Garden, is that it?
Octopus's Garden, yeah.
Octopus
Similar
Garden,
to
yeah,
this one,
yeah.
really.
Just around the corner from here, eh?
Yeah, yeah. So I like that we both ended up with sort of similar comps, but they're still different actual scenes. And I love the sort of foreground trees. Like your two trees that you got here are so awesome, and you feel really close, and yeah, you feel really close to yours. Mine's a little bit sort of larger scale, higher up in the tripod.
And
Yeah.
the other thing, you've got a little bit of mist there too to create a bit of depth. Is that right?
Yeah.
It really needs the mist, eh? You try shooting this in like full bright sun, it's just an absolute it'll do your head in, eh?
Yeah, but I guess it probably is like a cloud forest, so it's probably like that a reasonable amount of the time. So that is the going for it. And is that one of the moves to go back to, Ben, to get a bit more fog maybe in the next time you went back, or there was just more to have another chance?
The second time we went back up, which was 2 days after this, I petitioned to Michael to go up the very next day and then camp up there overnight, but Michael said no to that, which was very understandable. So we had a chiller day the next day, and then we went back up the day after. And we actually didn't really get any fog, so that was a challenging day. But managed to make some of it work. You just couldn't do like as many of these sort of style compositions. You had to maybe work with more like patterns and that kind of stuff. So you could get like it was less conducive to the wide angle sort of work. Michael, do you want to tell like how we went going up here in the conditions?
Yeah,
is it possible to make the images full screen as well?
Oh yeah.
F or
yep. There you go. It's not that high resolution because I had to move it from my actual
fine for
desktop to my laptop, so it's
fine for Zoom. That's fine.
Yeah, sweet, cool, beautiful. Yeah, it was just drizzling and kind of just a bit average, but I discovered my my raincoat was not as bloody waterproof as I thought it was. So we were like, we were like maybe 9/10 of the way up, and I was like genuinely like, man, we should. This is getting pretty borderline, eh? This is like pushing my limits of like kind of comfort. And then we turned a few more corners, and there was the hut, like beautiful. So we got the fire going and warmed up for about an hour or so before we went back out, eh? But yeah. Make sure you're waterproof. Yeah, your raincoat's waterproof before you.
And then
go out in the rain, eh?
flimsy down jacket as well got wet, which rendered it useless. And then
so
you weren't wearing much.
I was kind of thinking of anyone in the whole world that I know that must know about waterproofing, it'd be Will Patino. So I don't know if you product tested things that no one else has, Will, but I don't know, you must get wetter than anybody else alive. I don't know. I have to deal with it so much. I don't know.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is, man. Eventually you hit what I call the saturation point, and that's just where literally you're wet to your undies. There's nothing dry. The camera's wet. Inside the camera bag's wet, and I haven't really come across any gear that can hold out a full day. That's for sure. You maybe 4 hours at the most. But a lot of what I buy now is more from the hunting and fishing type gear.
Pretty robust.
Yeah, pretty robust. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's just part of the game. You just get amongst it. Yeah, that's why when Michael's explaining this, it kind of feels, I'm just envisioning the feeling. It's, to me, when I look at these scenes, I just know I can hear the rain. It's just so ingrained in my brain now, and that feeling and sound of the water on your shoulders, and yeah, it's all part of it. It's good fun.
It wasn't just rain on this one. It was actually really quite windy going up as well. So every bit of that water was being pushed into us, and
nice.
Develop inside the jacket was getting blown right out. So so thank you, Michael, for like allowing me to be like, no, I really want to get up here. Let's not turn back. So we
I love it too when you get that big gust come through and it just all comes off the tree at once on you too. That's always fun.
And so we were actually like just chilling out in the hut for like, while these beautiful fog conditions were happening, for like probably an hour and a half, just trying to get the fire going and warming up and drying out some layers and stuff, just because we just can't really bear going back out until we sort of get our base layers, in a bit more of a workable condition, at least our shirts and all that kind of stuff. But then we went out, the rain and wind had died off a bit. Fog was still lingering around, and we just got some real magic. I think it looks like we both only sort of came away with 2 photos from that day for the portfolio, but it was real special.
How come you didn't? There's a hut there, is there? I'm wondering why you didn't sleep in there, or you didn't intend to go up twice. Is that why?
Yeah. So we went up. It was just going to be this one day, and then another day doing something else, and then we were going to get the boat across. And so while on the hike back down from this, I was imploring Michael, please let's delay the boat. And so if we'd known that we wanted to spend more time up there, we would have probably just spent a night at the hut.
Take the sleeping bag.
That also means you're taking a lot more weight, and 1,100 meters isn't fun with more weight.
Yeah, but just all you need is a sleeping bag. Sleeping bag and food.
And it also would, like, we ended up doing this climb twice, which is a brutal, it's a lot of hiking. So it would have meant we had going up with a heavier pack, but only doing it once. So, but we
next time
we worked on based the original plan, and we did the best we could, and it worked out well.
If anything, it's amazing that you connected with it that much that you wanted to go back. So you didn't. For you, Ben, it would have been an unknown. So it's cool that you connected with it that much. So that's
probably a bit manic, wasn't I, Michael?
It induces maniacism.
Oh, wow. English?
That's good.
Yeah. All right. What else have you got for us?
Should we move on?
Please.
I don't know how long we got, so I think we'll skip straight through to this valley. So this was our probably our biggest mini trip within the trip. We did a 2-night mission into Mount Aspiring National Park. I think that's what it's called. Into this massive glacial carved valley. It was a spot that I've been eyeing up on the topo maps for just the longest time, going you can see the bowl shape of the valley and the way it's carved out. Just the sheer cliffs and the waterfalls.
Big glacial cirque.
Yeah.
Do you want to go full screen?
Full screen?
Yeah.
It's the big stuff, right?
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. It was pretty. There was a lot of great photos from this little mini trip, but we'll start with we'll do the wides. Was this one here as well.
Yeah, it was beautiful dappled light that morning. I didn't really catch a shot that made the most of that, so you did really well there.
Yeah, this one here was this might be my favorite of this waterfall area. Actually, I think the more I've sort of sat with this one, the more I kind of enjoy about it, like the sort of the S shape down the bottom and the way it's reflected, and then even just the little trees still in shadow, like kind of in the middle of the frame, further back. I think I might print this one at some point, but
it's got some really nice transitions, doesn't it, with the cool to warm and the light and dark and all that.
It's got such a great sort of interaction between that big sort of lichen covered beach on the left and then the waterfall to the right, and then some really subtle sort of vectors pointing in from your top. And it's not the typical way you'd shoot this scene. It's a very compressed sort of focal length. It's not right up close to any sort of foreground, but it just, when you spend the time with it, it just works so well.
What's the focal length there, mate? 130 or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, over 100. Yeah, this is actually this is when we were walking out. This is when I was walking out of the valley, Ben. You were still there shooting 2 bits, and I was walking back. And I turned around and I was like, one last one, eh?
This is the challenge in these big valleys, is when you're walking in them, this is kind of what your mind's eye sees, this perspective, your senses are just pulling everything together, and then you get that wide angle out, and obviously it just doesn't do justice. And then when you zoom in like this, it pulls in those key elements, but then you go, but it's hard, isn't it? It's a real challenge, and you really need to just kind of approach it in a few different focal lengths, which is what you've done so well with the last 3 images. So I can relate to that. It's like a sensory overload, and you got to kind of narrow down you almost have to just pick a certain direction to go with it. It's really hard to do it justice at times, that's for sure.
Yeah, the scale of this place was incredible. Like we turned the corner out of the forest sort of hike, Michael and I, and then we like just come up against this first wall and then the glacial wall behind. Shivers, that's my hood of my monitor. I just hit that. So like sort of glacial wall behind this big rock wall with all the waterfalls, that reaches over 3,000 meters. And it's just, you walk around that corner and it's just like, again, it's the most cliche thing to say in landscape photography ever, but the photos do not do it justice. It's the scale just feels so immense. It's so epic. We were just giggling like children, walking out and seeing like this scenery in front of us, and to see all those waterfalls sort of pouring down into this bowl and that big central one. And off to our right, I've got a BTS photo of this. Was from a distance, we thought it was a glacier. We were like, this has got to be the lowest glacier in all of New Zealand, but it turned out it was the big remnants of an old avalanche.
Pretty
and
cool.
It was, had compacted and had like streams running out from under it and all this kind of stuff. And some rumbles during the night as well.
Yeah, that was spooky, man.
Wasn't from
like,
the dehydrated meals.
Walking back, you just hear
I was a bit of both.
out in the distance, You're like, oh.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it was intimidating, but just incredible. And you've got some of that really beautiful turquoise water in your foreground here as well, which is fantastic. Special place, really special place. I was blown away. And again, I've never personally seen it photographed very well. So thank you. Michael really was showing me this and was just frothing on it. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So
sounds like you need to return the favor and drop some locations for him as well. Although I think you found a few yourself, didn't you? So we'll probably get to that.
Yeah. So there was it was really special, and getting to just hike in and spend a couple of nights here. I think we took enough food for 4 days, but we were satisfied after 2. After 3 days. Michael and I actually split it up in the final morning because Michael had seen a waterfall off the track further back that he wanted to shoot, whereas I had a goal for like a sunrise comp that I wanted to do. So Michael split off early and we sort of rendezvous.
So our campsite was just off to the left over here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but like kind of relatively close to where the shot is from. And Ben walked up to the base of that waterfall about at least 5 times,
Probably not 5, I think 3 or 4, and 50% of that was in the dark.
It felt like it, man.
Yeah, I think it was about 2 Ks and just a huge amount of boulder hopping. I actually at one point fell and scraped my head because it was just lost my balance. But yeah, it was very annoying to navigate, but it was just incredible. The shot. That was a fan. Yeah. So that was amongst the boulders, wasn't it? Up near that waterfall.
That was up by the waterfall. Yeah.
So if you go back to that boulder shot.
I'll go back to it, yeah.
So that was like that. Those are the sort of boulders up closer to the waterfall that are just everywhere, and that's the sort of terrain you have to navigate. There's no path. You're either walking. Yeah, the water is running through stuff like that, and then all around it are boulders like that. So it was tough, but and I ended up just tracking a sort of route on Gaia GPS, so I knew when it was a good place to cross the river, which took a bit of trial and error during my first run, but. You sort of get to know, where the good spot is, where it gets unreasonable to stay on one side and then you jump over to the other side because there's a boulder that's well placed and not underwater and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was really special, really special spot.
Yeah, I think Ben mentioned, but the fact that I at least, and I don't think him either, had seen much work from this valley before. Like I've seen the odd kind of tramping blog photos, but I haven't seen any work from anyone who, not to say that no one has gone out intentionally to shoot this valley as like a landscape photography trip, but I hadn't seen the work before, which made it a little bit more special, I think, for the both of us.
Yeah, well, kudos to you guys for doing that, because it's obviously very attractive if you've got a limited amount of time in a place to not go to the icons or places where there's a given composition as such. So I guess that's what photography is all about, though, is finding your own locations, and yeah, it's really amazing to see.
It's also like a good sort of case for staying in a place for at least a couple of nights and not just doing it in and out, because yeah, I don't think I got a single shot from my first evening and morning that was worth showing to anyone. um, Maybe like one sort of waterfall, one or two waterfall shots, but like just sort of tight with the telephoto sort of thing. But in terms of like wide angle dramatic compositions, that took me a full 2 days to find anything worth photographing. And so my second sunset and my second sunrise was where I got the work that I've ended up publishing from here. So yeah, I really love spending at least a couple of days, if not 3, 4, 5, in an area to just sort of give myself that chance and not be rushing it. And time
Gives you a bit of weather sort of tolerance as well, doesn't it? In case the conditions aren't quite what you're after, you've got a bit of buffer there. It's never exactly how you expect it to be. Yeah, that's a good policy.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to show this one here as well. That was this is another one from this valley, an adjacent valley on this trip. Just a bit of a different view, but the same area. This is a beech tree in front of the waterfall. Yeah, I quite liked it.
It's gorgeous. Like the light, like the golden light hitting the tree, and then the blue of like the color contrast of the blue in the background, and just the amount of lichen on the tree as well. It's really different. And that was on the way over to that avalanche, wasn't it?
The avalanche, yeah.
So yeah, and I remember you pointing at your comp there. I was like, oh damn, yeah, no, that is a shot. Like I didn't even notice. So yeah, Michael's just constantly got his 100 to 400 on his camera, and he's always just picking out these little things. I'm like, what on earth is he shooting here, man? And then I check it out. I was like, oh damn, that's an awesome little little thing to have picked out from the grand landscape. So you've got a real
definitely one of the fun things about shooting with someone else, because I know I've thought the same thing when I've shot with you, Ben, is about like just seeing how other people see, and Paul's like that too, just to wildly, if you ever have a chance to photograph with other people and in this sort of more in-depth way, it can be a really great learning experience for yourself as well, just to have a different perspective.
Yeah, big time. And yeah, Michael's sort of creativity with this stuff, like, because if as someone who enjoys that intimate sort of style of shooting, if I'm doing a trip with someone who only does like the wide angles, I can sort of like subconsciously put pressure on myself to not do it, because they're not going to be as interested in it, and I don't want to slow them down with something they might deem boring. But then so Michael, doing something with Michael here, I felt like I had full permission to just stop and point at a patch of rocks somewhere for like an hour if I wanted to. Like, so it was a good sort of license, I think, for both of us, to knowing that we both really enjoyed this sort of style of shooting, to just really go ham with it. So it was really good.
I think there's a few stories that we shot on your phone or my phone or something that was like, it was like showing like the whole grand landscape, waterfalls pissing down the mountains, and then like me crouched on a rock shooting a tiny shot like this or something, eh?
Yeah, you're pulling out a macro focus stack of some like schist on the side of waterfall or something like that, I think. And then I think we had the same moment walk into here as well. I was shooting some of the ripples under the water, and then we panned up and it was this glacial valley behind us as well. So yeah, we both had a bit of that, but it's a bit of a policy I have as well, as I'm often not actively shooting out places specifically for intimates. I'm often en route or at an area for grand landscape images, and then I'm finding and picking out those small scenes as well. So it means you can sort of be getting both, because there's always those small scenes amongst the grand scene.
It's almost like you need the grand scene as your vision, or like something to draw you there, and then you can pick up these little bits as you go. Yeah, like you're saying.
Yeah. So yeah, for those who think I've got these secret spots, or like that I'm going out to these spots that I know are great for intimates, it's not the case. I still love a good 14mm wide angle landscape, but I just get drawn to those little details along the way as well. So
never forget the time we first shot together, Ben, and we get out to South Cape Bay and you're just sitting there doing a focus stack on some rocks. And it was like the most amazing rock shot I've ever seen, I think. But it's definitely a different approach.
What else? That might be worth showing some of your stuff from that beautiful snowy morning, Michael.
These guys? Yeah, I thought we were gonna get
this shot. Oh, the composition in this image is just so good. Like, I think I was frothing to Will about this one at some point. Like, just the way you've handled so many branches entwining with themselves, but there is so much good visual flow at the same time. Like your corners are capped off, the trees point into the center, but they don't feel stilted. There's just so much going on that has been balanced so well. I really admire this composition. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Thanks, bro. Yeah. This was one that when I shot it, I didn't initially, it didn't resonate, but the more I kind of worked with it and looked at it back at home, I was like, oh, there's something here, right? It's definitely, for me, I think the way all the corners like sort of suggest that they enclose and kind of point into the middle. And it really, the way it frames, I think, kind of works for me so well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's nothing like on the nose either. Like your corners are capped off and everything, but it's not like, okay, this is a leading line. This is it's just all flows together so organically. So yeah, no, really, really nice. So this was part of a very special morning that, Will took us up during our second last morning, I think, on the trip. Basically, was it the last sort of snow dump of the year? Will, did you get any more snow that year?
Yeah, pretty much. It was spring. It might have been October, was it? Was it October?
Yeah, it was late October.
Yeah, so it seems like every year we just get like a nice one last good dump that comes through around that time. And yeah, I saw it. I was in Australia, as you mentioned earlier. I saw it coming and I thought, man, I hope, I think I should be able to get home in time for this. And I knew you were over. And sure enough, obviously it come through. So yeah, just spectacular. And to get high up to make sure we're in the snow properly. And the forest here, it's all silver beech as well. And it's all stunted from the elements, just like the original tree photos you showed earlier. So it's very similar environment. Normally these guys are obviously green and, green with yellows and things like that, but the snow just completely transformed it. But the good thing about this storm was that it was coming in squalls, so we got the dumps, but then it would blew right up, and we'll get the light coming in, and we just had a good back and forward, couple of hours up here with those conditions. It was quite overwhelming, especially I can see in some of on the trees on the left, like the icicles. I'll never forget looking at the icicles coming down on some of these trees. Like on that lower left corner, there's that one branch. Yeah, around there. Like that was phenomenal. Hey, just looking at the ice coming off. I found this section of forest probably 2 months prior, and I did about 3 trips up there in different conditions. And I specifically remember saying like, I need to get up here when the next snow dump comes. And I had one close call with sleet coming down, but it wasn't quite enough. And then this ended up being the day. So it was a pleasure to share it with you guys, and really just something I think we all cherish as a good highlight for the whole year, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a really special morning. And so we'll actually put up a YouTube video from that morning, which I highly recommend going and watching if you guys haven't already. It's it really captures a lot of the beauty and amazement of that morning.
And our absolute excitement and froth for the conditions.
I think I came away at the end of that video saying it was one of the best mornings of landscape photography I've ever had, and I absolutely stand by that statement. To have that combination of trees, mountains, snow, light, blizzard, like it was mind-blowing. So
pretty overwhelming, pretty fulfilling for me to hear, like to see you guys so stoked. Like I get that with clients obviously, but then to see it with your peers, to me that was almost as fulfilling as just the whole thing in general. Just seeing you guys really love it, like it makes me proud. It makes me proud to be here and share it with you. I remember this exact moment too. What a cracker.
Yeah, this is great. You were telling us to like carry on up the mountain, carry on because it gets real good. It gets real good. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I got something here, man.
I think I tried to shoot something here as well, and it didn't quite work out. So I admire you getting something. I think this was like you were trying to make your 100 mil on your 100 to 400 work as like best as possible. I think this was the point that made you decide you wanted a mid range, wasn't it?
Well, I'm now over 24 to 105.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
I was blown away that you didn't have one. But you made it work clearly. But yeah, no, really, really special morning. And I've got actually this was from one of those moments with the up in my background here, with the light hitting the mountains. And Will's got some incredible stuff as well. One particular one that I've just absolutely adore, with a sun star coming through the middle of these trees towering over the top. It was really something else.
I don't know about you guys. I was just going to say, because Mike mentioned that other one that it kind of grew on him once he got home. I feel like when I'm shooting especially in an environment like that, I don't really overthink. I just kind of shoot, get into a bit of a flow state, and then it's not until I get home where I can really digest everything. And I know if I'm more and more the last few years, if I get so fixed on a certain comp, like, yeah, this is the one, it just doesn't end up being the one. I get home and I go, oh no, it was actually like 5 shots earlier when I wasn't thinking too much. There's just something for me. I'm sure you guys can all relate, like just about just not thinking too much, just kind of just get in that zone, that flow state. And I don't know, and I feel like Forest in particular is really good for that. Just keep tweaking comps and just adjust and just keep moving and not just sit there and think, yeah, I'm dialing in this perfect, looking at all the corners. I don't know. Do you guys get that at all or not
Yeah,
really?
for sure. Especially when the conditions are changing as fast as they were on that morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely it's yeah, if you get bogged down like you were saying, you tend to get a bit frustrated or trying to make it work and it's not working. And yeah, those sort of like the idea of you're just on a stroll and you're just picking out bits and pieces as you go. And yeah, I definitely know what you mean. It's very fulfilling when you're sort of much more interacting with nature and seeing what's going on. So yeah, definitely identify with that.
I do spend some time like dialing in myself, but that's like I'll usually have found that snapshot. Like I'll be walking through and picking things off, and seeing if something works with me or not. And then when I do find something that I'm like, oh yeah, I really really like this, then I'll spend some time with it. But I try to not bog myself down until I find something that I'm like, okay, no, this is something I'd like to focus on and make sure I nail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like when I find that one though, that you feel like, yeah, this is the one, and you obviously spend more time on it, but I feel like more and more I'm just trying not to let myself get emotionally connected to it, because I've just had so many times over the years where I get home and I'm like, oh, that probably wasn't quite the one. So it's like I'm just trying to almost like be emotionless. Like I'm a pretty emotional person anyway, but
Yeah.
it's like I think this is really it, and I make sure I really fine tune it. But then like, cool, I'm gonna stop thinking about that and move on and see what else I find. And yeah, I know it's just a bit different to how I used to shoot for the first few years anyway. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I think we all all three of us went pretty much mostly full wheel Patino handheld on this morning as well.
Converted the boys. No,
Yeah,
you had to though, really. Like in that,
it was like
pretty
trying to
hard.
set it up in
We're
the
in
snow.
Rome, you know.
It was bright enough, that we didn't need to, long exposure or anything like that. And yeah, a lot of my comps as well were in spots that in such a chaotic, rooty, branchy environment were just really tough to set up a tripod. So yeah, no, it was good. It was nice. I'm a bit of a hybrid shooter anyway, so I kind of just realized it was the best call for that morning, and yeah, that was good. Yeah,
Okay, let's fly through some shots so we get a chance to see them all, because Ben's going to have to jump on too.
Is that what we're after?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
just give some more highlights. Yeah, lovely.
This is a ribbon wood that Ben and I'll tell a quick story. Ben and I were going to climb up this mountain on our way down the South Island. This is at the top of the South Island. We got to the ford, like a river ford on a road, and we were like, fuck, we're not driving through that, so we camped out the night just in front of the river. Unfortunately, it didn't go down, but that led us to the opportunities that we took instead of that. But this was an image from the morning that we woke up after camping in front of the ford.
Yeah, it was I think I remember, so we got there and it was just like, it was, I think there was like a crack in the ford or something like that meant there was water was flowing really deeply. And it was like a branch growing out of it as well. So we were considering, we're like, could we push the outback? And I'm like, no, it would have been dumb. And so we had to abandon that plan. But yeah, it ended up working out. We adapted, and I remember, this was just like on the side of the road. And I remember Michael shooting it. It was like, oh, what's he picked out there? And this has just turned out gorgeous. It's such a beautifully textural shot. And the little bits.
Is that lichen highlights there or something?
Those are the whitest flowers, and there's little patches of
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see this is the mosses, or it's like a orangey sort of color.
Yeah, or a lichen or something. Yeah,
right. Cool.
Yeah, mosses. Yeah, this is it's a ribbon wood, and we like it's quite a It's unlike a lot of other trees we have here, and it looks not native to New Zealand, but it is, and it's quite cool. It
Oh.
almost reminds me of like the cottonwoods they have over in the States.
Yeah, I was going to say that actually,
Yeah.
especially with the name as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of something that, like Sarah Marino or something like that would put out.
Yeah,
That
especially
style
the
shot.
bark and stuff down here. Yeah.
Very
Cool.
delicate.
I'll carry on so it don't take too long.
That's right.
It's a strangely similar composition, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But this is just a beech tree. Yeah,
Yeah, nice.
jump through.
Oh, this was Motakiki, wasn't it? Over
Yeah.
Grandmouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sunflare is such an interesting element to really just such an alien, because you can't see the water that it's reflecting off at all. There's just this glowy sort of ball, and it's really interesting sort of element to bring in.
It's sensual with those curves and soft light, mate.
Yeah.
I really like this curve up the top here that kind of runs.
That's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
No, the male mind is trained to look at those curves. I don't know.
Just follow the leading lines, Paul.
That's it. We're all the way to paradise.
To the light.
Oh dear.
Oh yeah.
We're going to get demonetized soon, aren't we?
So, but these were all little shells, weren't they?
Little hippie shells type.
Little tiny baby mussels, like not mussels, but like this similar kind of little
barnacles.
Yeah.
Again,
Again, this is like a game of corners, this one, just to keep all those corners like not bleeding out too much.
Yeah. No, that whole sort of coastline was really great for intimates and abstracts. None of mine ended up working out, but it was fun shooting them.
Yeah, this is another one, again from that morning, just classic me stuff, shooting light on water, 500,000 photos, you pick one,
I feel like that sums it up what Ben just said. You shoot a lot, but they don't often work out, but you have fun anyway.
Yeah,
true.
This is pretty cool.
Love this one.
Those starfish, they're amazing.
Yeah,
Such
I
a
think for
great
me the colors of this purple one down the bottom, like just the variety of colors in them is kind of what
That's an important color palette for that.
That's fantastic. And even just like you got the deeper orange, then the lighter orange, and then the sort of yellowy orange in the middle, and then the sort of more purpley brown ones, and then that far one where that's like darker with the orange stripes. It's like they've lined themselves up in color order. Like it's amazing. And just the spacing either side of your frame as well is just really fantastic.
There was I spent a lot of time figuring out the crop on this one. I was like, oh, is it too tight in the corner? Is it too? It was a lot of like rotating and a lot of. I'm happy with it. Landed quite well.
You should be. It's good.
Yeah.
Lovely.
This is just reeds poking up through. This was just one of the lakes down the west coast where we stopped.
We stopped for lunch, wasn't it?
For lunch, yeah.
That's what we went for a bit of a dip, didn't we?
Oh, we went for a dip. It was icy.
Yeah, that was cold. Yeah, I remember you shooting this actually.
Yeah.
At the end, there was those little oyster catchers with the red beaks and stuff. That were trying to distract us from their eggs on the sand. I remember that now. Yeah. I remember seeing you, like you just disappeared and you came back and showed me the back of the camera. I was like, what the heck? That's just this looks like there's just this most bizarre, like lame sort of textures, and then you've created such an interesting, like the red colors in it and the spacing. Something from nothing almost. It's really, really cool.
In real life, I saw the red as more like you could almost, the contrast didn't come out quite as well on the back of the camera as it did to my eye. So I'm like not entirely satisfied with this one, but I'm happy enough to kind of have it as part of this collection. These two kind of go together. They were just some backlit forest going through Haast Pass down towards Fiordland.
This was a roadside pullover, I think there was a couple of spots like this where this moss and lichen would just catch the backlit sun and just look like it was glowing. And then even when the cloud passed over, those yellow sort of leaves would just have such a neon sort of look to them. It was quite striking.
There was that one spot, Ben, not this spot, the other one, but
Oh
I'm
yeah.
definitely going back there, eh? We just missed the light on this one little patch of like amazingly characteristic trees.
I know the trees you mean.
Will knows the
Yeah,
trees.
yeah,
I've driven
yeah,
past probably 200 times, and literally last week I thought, is this the day? Because it was quite foggy, but no, it's just,
yeah.
I think they need fog, in my opinion, just to clean up the background.
So on our way into Huss Pass on the first day, they were perfectly backlit. So they were like illuminated golden from behind, and then their backdrop was completely dark. And we drove past that so we could try and get into a canyon with what I thought was like, I was like, oh, we should stop, but I really want to get into this canyon with good light. And it turns out we were way too late in the day to get good light in that canyon. So we should have stopped and shot those
Yeah,
trees.
yeah.
And then we couldn't get it again. We went back the next day at the right timing for the light, and the clouds overtook it, and so we couldn't end up getting it. But yeah, anyone who's driven through Haas Pass will probably know the trees we're talking about.
Just scratching my head. I was there about 4 days ago. So I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
if I showed you a photo, Paul, you'd probably recognize them. I reckon.
Okay, yeah, another time.
Yeah, yeah,
This was also in House Pass.
yeah.
This was, yeah,
Oh, delicious.
yeah.
Near our campsite, wasn't it?
Yep, yeah. This was actually it was when I took it, it was like a test photo for better light. And then when I processed it, I was like, oh, this was the photo.
That's cool.
This was the good light.
This was the good light.
Yeah, lovely, like super soft. I think I tried to make something work in here and couldn't. So yeah, props to you for making that happen. I love the little attention to detail with the spacing on that bottom left corner of just that small distant tree. Just having that room to breathe down there is just such a good, like, little Easter egg. The way it sort of
It stops the whole frame from being too slanted. It sort of balances it out a little bit, eh? Especially in the top right branch slanting the other way as well, for me at least.
Yeah.
No, to me, it's the depth that it's created by the layering of light. Like that's really unusual to get a stepping stone to go through an image like this, rather than just a big clunky forward and back between a bright background and a dark foreground. And there's all these kind of little layers to wander through and just lead you through with the most beautiful, elegant sort of pathway to give it depth. It's really quite astonishing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, a few more. Oh yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
I hadn't taken that closer look at this one yet. That comes out beautifully.
Yeah, thanks, so. Yeah, I spent a while just getting the levels right on the inside, the top left and the bottom right corners where there's just enough light to like kind of let the detail show, but not too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually again a similar comp to this one to the one before, really, now that I look at it with the angles. But
A little
yeah,
bit more like sort of yin and yang with the sort of back, like the sort of left and right sort of curves.
Yeah.
And you got again that straight line of the falling water, long exposure through the middle, just to give it that little subtle, upright, sense of direction, I suppose.
Yeah, sure.
Will would recognize this one as well. It's quite a popular canyon now.
Yeah, that one's lost now. Someone was telling me recently, one of the clients, that it's now in some kind of guidebook to New Zealand photography spots, and it's GPS tagged. So this it's gone now. It'd be hard to shoot here without other people being in the way, I think.
Yeah, we saw 3 or 4 other people come and go in the time we were there as well. Yeah.
I think we had it to ourselves while we were shooting, but someone was coming in as we were leaving. But yeah, it's beautiful nonetheless. I was like having seen photos of this canyon before coming in. I was expecting to just be like, all right, this is a popular spot. But I walked in and I was still blown away. It really is beautiful. And there's so many other dozens and dozens of canyons along Haas Pass that can be the scapegoat, I suppose, for the masses.
You watch canyoning videos, like people like rappelling down the waterfalls and stuff, and you're like, man, if I could get a bloody camera in there, holy.
I saw Mark did a little bit of that when he was here. I think he got a shot of like a sort of portal composition that I'd actually seen in a guidebook and was like, I'd like to shoot that one day. And then lo and behold, a few months later, Mark had put it up on his Instagram. I was like, there we go. So he's obviously, props to him, going and done some proper canyoning and gone to the effort to take that. But yeah, there's so much potential. And Will, again, I'm sure you've done lots of research into the opportunities out there, and
Yeah, I've explored quite a few of them, not abseiling or rappelling, but yeah, definitely walked up to some really interesting ones, and yeah, captured a few unique spots. It's amazing.
yeah,
That's nice.
yeah, the backlight on that's lovely. I
Pretty
like
great
how
picture.
I like how you didn't, you resisted the temptation to like really take that super golden and yellow. Like it's quite a pale sort of light still,
Yeah.
slightly
Yeah.
cool sort of temperature.
Thanks,
Yeah.
mate.
Yeah.
I just like that you left the background in, so it's got the depth. That left-hand side, it just really creates that depth. And just seeing the gradient with the blacks, it's really nice.
Gives it a real sense of place as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
A few more just to make sure we don't go too over time.
Yep. Carrying through. This is basically in that same spot as the last one. Okay, I'll go through a bit faster.
Lovely.
Just some more trees. I quite like this one a lot.
The subtle sort of oranges in there are fantastic.
Kelp, is it?
No, this is just light on a stream. Just water.
Okay. It almost looks like kelp in the yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
That's sublime.
Carry through. Seen these.
Okay.
This one here, this is from Fiordland, just the lowland sort of forest off the side of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. This the orangey tree here is a tree fuchsia.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're quite cool.
The tree fuchsias they can sometimes be tricky because they're overwhelming with that orange contrast, but that's nice there because it's just kind of one main one. It works well, man.
The way they counteract each other with that curve is fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's just a bit of Hotearoa forest.
So good. Yeah. I can't remember. When was this? Actually, that was I got the first day, or second day in Fiordland, wasn't it?
Yes.
When we
yeah. This is
Yeah. Oh,
that rain. This one through the rain. You can't really see the rain texture, but zoom like
yeah. No, it's really nice.
Yeah. Cheers. This is another good one.
Yeah.
Looking down.
Yeah, had to keep the base of this tree here sort of in the shot. If it was cut off, it sort of this tree in the foreground here sort of floated. So yeah, I really needed to. But yeah, the way that
the curve to it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the curve is good. This little spot of light here really makes it for me, I think.
And pointing down also means you get a little bit less of those sky gaps as well, which are really distracting. I didn't end up coming away with any photos from this section of forest because I was struggling with that. But yeah, you've done well here to capture those, like the nice patches of ferns, the depth in the trees. And again, this is that sort of depth and scene based shooting that I mentioned earlier that I believe Michael's very, very good at, and I struggled with more when all the trees are quite similar. There was a muscle that I really had to actively try and develop when I was in New Zealand, because there was more of this than there was the obvious sort of subject tree style shooting that I'm more used to from Tassie.
So it's that snowy morning up the top of Fiordland with Will.
Yeah.
Some beautiful snow-capped mountains.
Yeah.
Seen these. That's another one from that morning.
Yeah.
The opening.
Yeah, the orangey red sort of tones in the in the moss and the trunks was really fascinating. I remember seeing some patches like that. It was a really interesting color. It's quite vibrant as well. Yeah,
but it contrasted quite well with the blues, at least.
Yeah.
If there's one Aurora photo I want to get, if it ever goes off like the other night again in my lifetime, it's to try and incorporate the forest. Like mountains, rivers. All right, I feel like I've kind of been fortunate to have done that quite a few times, but now I was thinking about it the other night. Like there was no way I was able to do it. It was too occupied and too much going on. But when I got home, I was like, imagine being within a forest, looking up with the Aurora. Just something very, it's something very bizarre and not really common to try. So one day maybe up here, looking out.
Like you only sort of see that stuff from like Lapland. Not really anything outside that.
No, not.
And there's some very identifiable kind of New Zealand trees with those beaches as well. Like it can really make a statement that way too with a silhouette. Yeah,
I've got them silhouetted like in the mountain frames and things, but it's always still like a mountain image primarily. But I'd never like to go in the forest. Obviously, be a bit of a technical nightmare with the light, but it'd be something to keep in mind.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Michael. Yeah, it was awesome. It was great to relive those and have a bit of another deep dive into them as well. Yeah, no, it was a really good time, and I definitely recommend everyone checking out Michael's website. Michael, what's your website or Instagram for people to check out your work?
McGeemedia.com.
Yeah,
McGeemedia.com.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's also linked in the show notes or description of the video as well. Fantastic.
Thanks.
Awesome. I might transition to some of my own photos if that's all right, to show for the evening, to add a bit of complimentary to Michael's work. Yeah, it's
and I know that I don't know if Willa Michael needed to go, but it is quite late, so just give them an opportunity. Not that they don't want to see Ben's work.
I want to run away from Benny, so I'll stick it out as long as I can, mate. I've already had a look and texted you, but I might just zip away halfway through here. I'll just silently disappear, but I'll stay for a few. And thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's been our pleasure.
Thanks for joining.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Alrighty, let's go share here. Right. You see you guys seeing that?
Yeah.
Right. So on my website, I've actually got like it arranged in a very particular way in sort of triplets. So not necessarily in chronological order, but I figured chronological order would be a little easier for the purposes of talking about the trip potentially. So this is a section of beach that we shot in our first morning, and I actually saw some sea stacks just next to this on my flight as I was pulling into, like, as we were landing in Wellington. I actually asked Michael, I figured out which stacks they were, and requested that we went and shot that at sunrise. So yeah, so just a little, close by. I wanted to kick off the trip. Had a very sort of moody, dramatic morning. I felt the sort of long exposure vibes, felt like sort of fitted a monochromatic look.
Can you do the full screen thing too, Benjo?
Yes. F. There we go. Beautiful.
Thank you, sir.
Now, yeah, this is up in those goblin forests on that first day when it was super foggy and rainy and all that kind of thing. So I had to do a bit of a shutter speed blend in order to get these grasses, nice and frozen. And there's some troublesome moss up here that I had to try and, I had to bump up the ISO for and try and get that nice and, frozen from the blowing wind. But man, you can just see just how gnarled and crazy these trees are. Like, you've got these just random lumps like this one over here. It's quite a similar composition to Michael's first shot, really. It's just these upside down looking things, and they're just drenched in moss, and they're just everywhere you look. It's really quite, like I said, I felt like one of those people, if I was under a burning sky and I had no idea what to point my camera at, and my brain was just overloaded with information that I didn't even know where to point the camera, and just sort of immediately put a lot of pressure on myself to try and come away with something, because I knew this was really something special. So it wasn't necessarily a calm, enjoyable day of shooting. It was really quite stressful, but it was also absolutely incredible, and one of my fondest memories from the trip, just for how amazing it was. This is another sort of patch where, this just to me looks like some sort of strange creature, with its arms up in the shadows here, with this little opening and this little hole in this one back here. Just really weird stuff going on.
This is a great representation of this place. Like it's just weird tree after weird tree.
Yeah. These random little yellow patches in the moss, and you can see here, like, they're pretty skinny for the most part, but then there's just so much like growth and moss and lumps of stuff all around it. It's such a bizarre, like, just unlike anything else I've ever seen.
Must be a very sensitive area too. Like, you'd be careful when you're getting around to not damage too much moss or things like that as well.
Yeah. So thankfully there are areas like these sort of grassy areas. So there's not really moss in between those for the most part. So you can sort of comfortably sort of walk in through that a little bit. There are patches where there's moss all around it too, but you can sort of find patches where it's just grassy and then just littery sort of undergrowth, and that's a little better to step on. But yes, absolutely, for the most part, very sensitive environment, and we're really sticking to the path, because there's so much stuff to just shoot from the path. Like you really don't need to venture beyond. Unless you've really thoroughly explored the area already. And I mean, Michael has, and he's still shooting for the path. So it
Yeah.
goes to show how much there is to do.
This is like one like 500-meter stretch of like ridge line, you know. And then
Wow.
there's hundreds of kilometers of ridge line throughout the whole. There's this whole range, so
Yeah.
Wow.
there's
Yeah.
lifetimes of exploring to be done, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I'll stay on. I'll go come back to these. I'll do some more. So this is when we went back the next day. So there wasn't any sort of fog or anything like that. So yeah, required a little bit of different shooting. So this was, yeah, had to go with more sort of shapes and patterns rather than the wide angle stuff. That was less conducive. This one here, I just like, yeah, this was just off the side of the path again. And I loved how this sort of looked like a splayed hand, which then Luke actually inspired the title for this one. It looks like one of those plasma balls, the electricity
Yeah.
sparking out.
Tesla coil.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just found this sort of almost like it reminded me of almost like a stained glass window sort of arching over the top of it as well, just framing it in. And yeah, this is more that sort of working with layers, patterns, just showing just how dense, just truly dense it is. So much going on.
Stare at that at hours for hours, couldn't you? Just picking out different details. Yeah.
Yeah.
You focus stacking here, Benny?
No, not focus stacking.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So here I wasn't that close to this tree, thankfully, so I could get enough sort of depth that I think shooting at the F11 or something like that. Yeah, back here it's not totally in focus, but it's sharp enough, and you don't need.
You almost want a bit of depth anyway with those. I think I've heard of some woodland photographers that shoot commonly at 5.6 and stuff like that to use the transition of focus as well. But yeah, it's a personal taste, I suppose.
Yeah, it really didn't need it to be tack sharp all the way through. So it's sharp enough in the background, but not, crunchy sharp, which is what I'd like really. This is actually one of my favorites from the gallery. So this is actually just walking back on the second day. And so it's just on the path. And I looked up, and so this is mostly cloudy, but the sun was just sort of coming in and out of the cloud. So it's a diffused sort of backlight. So it's not full direct sun, but it wasn't, just a soft box of cloud. And I really loved the way the rim lighting on the moss just sort of reduced it to these patterns. And I found that this tree in the middle almost reminded me of some sort of creature like leaning back, putting its arms out, protecting itself from all these other sort of trees, like encroaching in over the top of it. It felt like it was really intimidated by its environment. It almost felt like me on the first day.
What did you title this one again, Ben? I forget what you titled it.
Yeah. What was that? Sorry?
What did you title it?
I think I titled it Cower.
First date, my first date.
Because I remember when I saw this initially, I didn't see the sort of the character that you just pointed out, but after seeing it with your title, I was like, oh yeah, totally. I can see exactly what you saw. So I think it's a very appropriate title.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and so it's not like, I don't think it'll be everyone's favorite. I don't think I've seen anyone else sort of comment on it, but I'm fine with that. But for me, this is one of my favorites, and I actually find myself gravitating a lot towards working with silhouette and backlight and all that kind of thing at the moment, and deliberately having my shadows really dark in some areas, and working with that natural luminosity is a direction I find myself exploring a fair bit at the moment. And you'll see a few more shots like that in this gallery. And New Zealand's trees just provided the perfect way to explore that sort of compositional technique and theme, I suppose.
That's my favorite light. That type of light, the way the moss catches it, it's just because, like you said, it's diffused, but there's still enough light coming in. You wouldn't really notice it on your hands or anything, but there's just that way the moss catches it. It's just perfect compared to like a clear day. Even a clear day in the golden hour, it's still so much stronger.
Yeah.
But I know the exact light you mean. It just brings out the luminosity so well. Good fun to shoot.
It was really nice. So I was just basically walking down. I just looked up and I captured it, and looking back at it, like I felt the sort of, sense of balance when I was shooting it, but then looking back at it, I really just sort of saw that character in the middle. So I fine-tuned the crop a little bit to put a bit of emphasis there. But yeah, so I always, look for backlight. If we don't have sort of fog or mist or rain or anything like that to provide that depth, then I find that backlight and can often be a good substitute if that's what you're having to work with. So yeah, I'll backtrack to a couple of other shots. This was a macro painful focus stack of some really cool endemic New Zealand flora. These are called kidney ferns, I believe. I don't know what the mosses are called particularly, or the ferns, but yeah, this was just like this. That's just amazingly characteristic sort of plants, and there was a certain elevation level on this hike up to this particular rainforest where they were just everywhere on the ground, like a carpet. And so I spent a fair bit of time on our second day. I noticed them on the first day, but we breezed right past them so we could get up in the good conditions. But on the second day, with the sort of clearer weather, I really spent some time trying to find a good grouping of them, and eventually settled on this one. And they're just, yeah, really, they look like they're sort of glowing and really luminous. I think I might have some phone BTS actually. You can see just the way that they cover like this entire tree here. This is just on my phone. Actually, there's some good examples of some more of these crazy trees just off the phone here. Just mental. It's the only way I can describe it, really. Just these knobby looking things. There's Michael down there. But yeah, so these are some of those kidney ferns. There was just this section of forest where they were just everywhere. And so I really loved that I managed to come away with something there, because they really caught my eye. This was from a very wild evening on the Wellington coast. It was like so strong in some places that you'd struggle to stand up. I think it was blowing camera bags away if they were exposed to the wind. So I just sort of sat here and captured these waves, and the birds are not photoshopped in; they are real. They were really there. So yeah, that was just a lovely golden evening. And then we sort of moved away.
How many focus stacks on your kidney ferns been?
Or I don't know off the top of my head, probably 15.
Wow.
I'd say maybe something like that. And at as higher an aperture as I could go to, that would still let enough light in without getting any sort of movement. And then
are you using Helicon to put it together?
I did use Helicon, but it struggled because there was enough sort of focus breathing and stuff that it's still misaligned at times. So I did have to do a bit of manual fixing. I might have chosen the wrong setting, so it might have been a partial error on my fault. But so yeah, it did need some TLC to bring it together. But yeah, Helicon definitely made my job easier. That's for sure. From there, we made our way to the South Island, our delayed venture to the South Island. And I'm very glad that we, took that second day up in these forests, because I managed to come away with these few shots. So just a little abstract on the way in to this beautiful limestone gorge that Michael and I came across. So yeah, we just had a day sort of on the west coast. This was after our failed Ford crossing to do this other multi-day hike that we were hoping to do. And so yeah, we made our way to Motakiki Beach, like that sort of Greymouth area, and we had most of the day to kill, and we knew there was heaps of stuff around. So I think there was more Michael than me, put in the research to try and find something to do. And yeah, we came across this limestone gorge that it was just absolutely gorgeous. It was beautiful. That was not intended. I've got some phone photos that show just how beautiful it was. So basically, this is as you're walking down into it. You got this wonderful green moss everywhere. You got these beautiful trees. This amazing white limestone just everywhere. I could have easily spent more time in there trying to pick out more details and abstracts. I actually got a proper shot of this as well, but I didn't end up liking it when I processed it. But yeah, you got these hanging sort of branches everywhere, and this backlight was beautiful. It's almost beach sort of area with all this moss and sand. I
think we shot for like 3 hours just in that first phone photo that you showed, just that little area. Like we just
this whole from like there's like a deep, really deep cave through here as well that we shot into. So basically this sort of like 30-meter patch to like this 50-meter patch for like 3 hours. We were just got in the Zen mode, got in the flow of it, and just absolutely loved it. So you can see one of my compositions is, I think, this little patch right down here. is find the shot. This
Is
one.
that a crop or a multi-row pano? It's just trying to pick the.
Was that sorry?
Is that a crop or a multi-row pano?
That was just a wide angle on my phone. That one.
It says 4:3. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, the iPhone just by default does 4:3, I think. So it was it's just on the phone. But yeah, so just picking out little beautiful details like this. I loved the way that these rocks were sort of arranged in this area and the sort of lovely gentle curves through here. And then I love the little Easter egg of this one just sort of poking up in the back in the shadows there as well. There's just a little bit of visual tension to bring your eye through the frame again. And something like this too. So this was actually this was me sort of crouching tripodless under this grouping of rocks, shooting this at maybe ISO 1600 or something like that, handheld, because it was just really dark and cramped and I couldn't really fit a tripod in there. And essentially this light from outside the boulders was coming in and bouncing off that water and then really just illuminating the limestone. And it's just such an interesting little patch. And so this reminded, I titled this Centurion because
very anthropomorphic.
It looks like some sort of soldier with a helmet on or something like that. Luke said it reminded him of some sort of masked bandit or something like that. I think I gave Luke a bit of an advanced screening and he said that was what it reminded him of, and I absolutely see that too.
It reminds me of Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Someone Google that. Seriously, he's got like that middle piece.
That might be up for a title change in that case.
I love this one. It's really nice.
Yeah. So there was this one was really. Oh, sorry, Paul.
One of my favorites you released, I reckon.
Oh, thank you. It was a different one for sure, and I can thank the modern, processing powers of Adobe denoise and Topaz denoise for trying to bring it back down to a reasonable amount of lack of green, because those come out looking pretty clean in the end. There's a little bit of residual grain in here, but so you can see that background is actually quite soft because I was shooting at a lower aperture in order to capture it again at a reasonable shutter speed and ISO. But I actually quite like the depth in the end. I don't think it needed to be in focus. So it was just a really fun place to shoot. Then in a similar vein, this was out on the coast near a very popular spot called Pancake Rocks. This is, I think, maybe the beach down from that. And just this very bleached white stone. I think probably limestone again, I presume. Maybe not, but just the way the layers were stacked. And just how pale it was in the bright sun was just really interesting. I found in the curves again.
I like how this is almost like there's a bit of an optical illusion sort of thing happening, eh?
Yeah,
it's got a lot of three-dimensional aspects. I really love this one, and if you see it in more detail too, Zoom definitely doesn't do it justice. Just all of the little detail, the little kind of pebbles that are sort of on this surface too. It's it's a very delicate image.
This little pink shell sitting here as well. A little grouping of them sitting down there. But that was a fun one to shoot.
Well seen, Ben.
Thank you, Paul. This is just the classic Motukiki Beach. I ended up doing it in black and white because I was struggling with the color, and I had a couple of other coastal shots that I felt worked best in black and white, so I figured I'd match it within the gallery to that sort of vibe. But you can see here just the classic sort of starfish and the water flow coming through, and these just gorgeous sea stacks.
I got washed off that shelf 48 hours ago. Steep wave took me off my feet.
Oh my gosh! Shit. So we got just like incredibly lucky.
What's the tides of that place?
So we didn't plan this at all. We just rocked up, and it just happened to be a perfect low tide at sunset. Like we didn't, it couldn't have been better if we did plan it. That was just put that down to some luck.
Don't mess with that place if it's not low tide. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. It's a long walk back to the car as well.
I like the foreground background separation. There's that tiny little spot between the big stack and the foreground where there's about 3 pixels of water, right?
Just
enough separation.
It does bug me that I didn't pick a flow shot that separated these two. I can't be perfect, guys. I'm sorry. If I'd blend it, so this was only one foreground shot. If I could have blended different foreground sort of flows in order to capture that. But at that point, I was 40 photos deep in putting this gallery out, and I think I just got lazy. So I don't know, maybe if someone orders a print, I'll put that effort in. This was that beautiful canyon that we were talking about before, which is now quite a popular spot, but I was still just just blown away by how gorgeous it was. And the color of the water and the incredible, just the detail and the schist, like the amazing textures that's all throughout these walls. The way it is just sort of glow within itself as well. It was really, really quite beautiful. Will's got some beautiful ones in there. Dylan Fox as well from WA has some gorgeous, amazing shots from within this canyon as well. I just really love the sort of, from this vantage point, which is a bit further back in this sort of like nook at the back of the canyon, the way it just sort of forms this snaking sort of S shape with this side of the canyon compared to this side of the canyon. And then you've got this sort of just sapling sticking out of the sort of mound here as like a little, entrance guard to the canyon, I found. So I just love the water flow coming through here and the way it just visually flowed.
It's a really great shot, Ben.
Oh, thanks, man. I spent a fair bit of time fine tuning this comp. I think you probably remember me sitting in this little corner for quite a while, actually.
Yeah.
I had my waders on. I managed to pack a pair of waders into my luggage, so I was relatively comfortable. Yeah, so I was. They're pretty cheap waders, so they were still the water was still sort of slowly making its way through, but it did mean that it was, more realistic for me to spend that amount of time in that cold canyon water.
I've been in there and I still think my legs are thawing out from when I was in there. This is cold.
This was just some lovely schist detail on the way out. There's New Zealand, so Tassie has some amazing sandstone. I don't think New Zealand has as much cool sandstone, but it has incredible schist, and schist is just such an amazingly textural rock. It's really, really...
Sounds like it's good for puns as well.
Michael put out an entire gallery called what was it? Schist Show?
Schist Show.
Perfection.
We were making jokes the entire trip about being up Schist Creek and all this stuff. So it was a good one. It was a good time. But I love the orange highlights in it, which you can see all through down here as well. Just those little orange highlights in the ridges compared with like the sort of cooler dark grey tone of the rock. It's just a very, really, really fascinating one. So anyone that loves their rock abstracts like myself and like Michael would have a field day. Now, I didn't come into the trip with many sort of pre-visualized images, but I would say this is probably the only one that I came in just really wanting, this location at least, really wanting a shot of. This is a waterfall that I think is probably on the verge of people starting to figure out where it is. There's only a couple of other people, or maybe, only a few other people that I know that have shot it. And it's just incredible. I remember seeing the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, how is this not huge already? And so I had to do a lot of research to figure out where it was. I ended up finding it after, going through some guidebooks and some obscure YouTube research and all this kind of stuff, and eventually managed to figure out where it was. So it was a bit of a trek through forest and up a stream and all this kind of stuff, but it was really beautiful. So this was actually the spot that we skipped past those trees, backlit by the golden sun in Haas Pass to come to here. And that first day was just, the lighting was super flat. It was not worth coming in. You really needed to come in when the sun was higher to give that dynamic sort of light. So we came back in here a second time with plenty of time to allow the sun to be in the right sort of place. And different times of the year, the sun will line up with the canyon differently. So you might see some photos that people have. I think Daniel Murray has an amazing shot of there's actually beams sort of coming through here, which I think is more of a summer thing. But but yeah, I think the spring melt, like the spring sort of snow melt that we had at this location, meant that there was so much water and so much water spray that I put on the waders and got through this pool, which, you know, through here actually got to about chest deep on me, and I'm 6'4", 6'5". So it was quite deep through there. And then once I was perched up here trying to shoot it, the moment I'd uncover my lens, it was just instant spray everywhere. Just files were unusable within less than a second. By the time you got to pressing the shutter, it was just, yeah, it was useless. So I retreated, a little bit discouraged because I was imagining getting a bit closer, and then managed to find actually that when I sort of perched, like stood up in this sort of rock above the water, so I couldn't really set up the tripod because the tripod would have been half a meter to a meter lower with the legs in the water. They couldn't fit on this little rock I was standing on. So if I sort of put myself up to my full height, went handheld and shot this scene, I could get that nice separation of these rocks and get the beautiful sort of foliage either side of this waterfall. And I found that sort of panoramic crop really cut out a lot of dead space at the bottom in the pool and any sort of sky gaps up the top. And so this is a rock arch. This is not a fallen tree or anything like that. That's an incredible natural rock arch. And it just blew me away with just how beautiful it was. So you can see just all this spray in the air up here, just being sort of backlit by that same sort of light that was in that tree shot, where it's sort of half cloudy, half sunny. It's not full strength sun, but it's enough to give that sort of glow, give some highlighting on the foliage all through here, and give that.
And just while we're talking about spray, Ben, again, I'm going to bring Will to the conversation because I don't know anyone in the world that's had to deal with more spray and moisture in the atmosphere. And I was just struggling with this last week myself. Like when you've got less than a second to get a shot, and you want to get a crack at multiple shots and not turn the front of your element to a cesspit. Like what the hell do you do? And how do you keep it dry? And even how do you do it multiple times in a row without sort of saturating what you're using to dry? I just find that such a nightmare.
Yeah, it's tough. This is how I became a handheld exclusively shooter like 6-7 years ago when I moved here, because I wanted to get out and photograph in rainstorms and, you know, places like this. And I just found using a tripod it was just way too difficult, especially if you're standing in a flowing river and it's raining. You know, the time you set up on that tripod, the camera's just cooked. So I started shooting handheld and using a large microfiber towel with the camera wrapped in that under my armpit, get the settings dialed in. And then when it was time to shoot, it was just a matter of, you know, 3, 2, 1, pull it up, bang, 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 put it back under, clean it. And that's just how I do it to this day. And that's all you can really do, to be honest. And yeah, it's still a huge pain in the butt. And the 12 to 24 is an absolute nightmare. So if I am in the rain, I'll use a 16 to 35 instead, because the 12 to 24 is just so much more of a bulbous front that a single raindrop is just magnified tenfold. It's ridiculous. So yeah, it does help not shooting too wide and using a lens that doesn't have too much of a curvature. But yeah, handheld with a big microfiber towel is kind of my thing that I generally do, but it still sucks, that's for sure. It's all part of it.
Yeah, Kimtech wipes is what I use which Luke got me onto years ago now.
That's I got onto that from Dylan Toe, and I think he got onto that from David Thompson. So it's coming from all the way.
Yeah,
I'm onto it from Ben. So
yeah. So I do the same sort of microfiber cloth method. So I'll have the sort of microfiber cloth just sort of gripped in my hand in the sort of hand bit there, and so it's over the sort of my camera and lens, so it's protecting the sort of buttons and everything like that. And then I use the blower for like contactless, you know, removing of the water droplets, so I'm not smudging the lens too much. And then for any residual stubborn drops, I use the Kimtech wipes for getting that off, because I find that they do way less smudging than any sort of cloth does. So I try to not use cloths anymore for the actual glass element. But
Never would have thought about blower to remove water. That's clever.
Yeah, it's just like it gets it off really quickly. It's like beads off a duck's feathers. Like it would
depend on how clean your lens is already, and if it's got a nice hydrophobic surface on it, will blow right off. But if it's a bit oily already, it's not going to go very far. Yeah. And also, if you have a flat surface, like if you have a filter on the front, that'll do a lot better. If you use a blower on a curved element, it's just going to blow it right around back into the lens again. And that's not too great.
Yeah, so keep in mind that I was doing that on my sort of polarizer at the front of my lens, which I was using to cut through some of these reflections down here and enrich those greens. But yes, there's only so much you can do. I think I was far back enough from the spray here that it wasn't giving me such an issue. I was just every sort of few shots just giving a bit of getting some of the fine mist on it that I'd be able to wipe off. But yeah, back here was from that vantage point that you can see from I took this photo from was much more manageable. So
I'm interested in the crop on this one too, Ben, because I think you mentioned it was a 2-1 crop. Is that just more to have that obviously a more panoramic view, but was it to kind of still make sure that you weren't losing that feature in the center as well?
Yeah, so I went with this because I loved all of this detail from the side. So all the way through from this sort of capping off that upper right corner to this here, to the way that the water sort of was trailing into this bottom right corner, and the vines sort of or leaves over here, and then all the way to this fern sort of hanging down. I just loved all of that detail, and it just felt worth including. It felt like it was part of the story of this scene. But then at the top and the bottom, there was a lot of stuff that I felt wasn't necessary for the scene, and that there was just sort of more of this, mist that was just obscured detail, and down here it was just sort of more water. And so I felt it just wasn't a balanced image when I included all of that. It felt ultra wide for the sake of ultra wide. But when I brought it down from the top and bottom, or brought it up from the top and down from the bottom, then everything else felt much more deliberate for being in there. So I actually I started shooting it in my normal ratio, but then I ended up cropping it in camera and shooting in camera at a 16:9 ratio, which is quite close to 2:1 naturally. So that helped me to sort of pre-visualize my final crop a little better as well. So yeah, there's I think 3 2:1 crops in this gallery, which is something I haven't played with much before. But
so you're going to enter the Pano Awards then, is what you're saying?
I did enter Pano Awards for the first time in years this year, because I actually had something to enter. So this is another 2:1. So this was captured in that spot in Aspiring National Park that Michael and I hiked into. So our campsite is way down at these flats down here.
Wow.
And so I hiked up and down this probably about 3 or 4 return trips, I'd say. I think 4.
You had that waterfall behind you then here, was that right?
Yes. This is quite close to the top. So I scattered all around this for a couple of hours, trying to find foreground flow for this sort of shot that I was pre-visualizing for sunset on that second day.
And that's the shadow of Mount Aspiring in the distance then?
I think so, yeah. If not exactly Mount Aspiring, it might be the one just directly behind us, but Mount Aspiring was quite close by. So so it got that sort of shadow of that sort of surf behind us, and that sort of warm evening glow and completely clear sky. But I felt like that was fine. There was enough going on in the rest of the image that if there was a busy sky, I think it probably would have just been distracting. So I think it needed that bit of just simplicity to have the image feel digestible. And again, going further up, like in my crop, if I'd allowed more room at the top, it just felt like it diminished that mountain in the middle. And going more at the bottom just felt like there was just too much water flow. So whereas going that full width but then cropping in meant I could get this lovely line coming in from the corner here, and it just feels quite cinematic. And that panoramic look is how the eye sort of sees things. And so I just sat up here for I think I set up my tripod. This is one of the benefits of tripods. Not to sell it to you, Will, but I just basically left it in position for 2 hours straight. I just returned to it at different stages of light, and just be like, all right, click, 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 get my focus stack, play with the shutter speed for a couple of different times. I know I can blend these perfectly together without any movement later. Go back to my dinner that's cooking, have that. Rock up, the lights changed a bit 10 minutes later, click, 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 done. So that was a really relaxing shoot for that, and I really enjoyed it. And then the hike back down in the dark was less relaxing, but you take what you can get.
And that scree, that would have been a real mish.
Yeah, so this was that second morning where Michael sort of got that more compressed shot with the blue sort of sand and everything. My first morning I was more up amongst the rocks shooting up at the waterfall, but I felt I wanted to include more of the foliage and the sort of trees lining the river further down. And so I found this spot And I just really love this sort of young beech tree here with all this amount of like amazing lichen on it, which I felt really helped it to sort of stand out and act as a counteracting element to the waterfall over here, like a bit of a supporting, like a co-star or like a supporting act sort of thing, just to fill in what would otherwise just be a whole lot of dark trees. And I also really loved the amazing blue rippled detail on this rock down here. It's just amazing patch of schist. It's a good schist down in this bottom right corner. And you can just see, yeah, this is what you're navigating the whole way up, these sort of rocks. And yeah, just such an epic waterfall at the back in the background. And you can just get a little hint of the amazing mountain wall behind it. And then all these sort of waterfalls pouring down. So speaking of those waterfalls, this is a close-up of that main waterfall, which I got during that, I think, first morning. So got up nice and close, and I probably took, honestly, maybe 400 frames just of this waterfall. It was kind of ridiculous. I just definitely made my job way harder than it needed to be when it came to picking the right frame. But yeah, I just had so much fun shooting the falling water and interactions with gravity and wind and all of
if
that.
it didn't take 400, you probably wouldn't have got that frame. So it's one of those things.
There we go. Yes.
Next time.
What's the shutter speed been?
Let me see if I've got any metadata on the JPEG here.
Press
1
I,
per second.
You can press I as well to
Yeah,
overlay
there
it.
we go. I's not doing it there. There we go.
Oh, isn't it?
Oh yeah, sorry, it was there.
Yeah.
So yeah, 1/5000th of a second, f7.1 ISO 500, just to really make sure I was freezing all of those droplets. Yeah.
Must have had a decent amount of light there, yeah.
Yeah, it was nice and sunny. So I don't think it was full on sun, but it was bright. And then this was a similar sort of time, actually. So this is, if we look back at this waterfall is one of the ones pouring off to the right here with the morning sun behind it. This is one of my favorite shots in the gallery, actually. It's just that working with that, almost like that painterly term chiaroscuro, which is that transition from dark to light, and the really soft, like softly detailed but still really dark background, and letting that natural luminosity come through.
I know you're having a debate on this one about color or black and white, but I'm really glad you're stuck with color just for the moss there.
Yeah, I'm glad I did too. I think black and white still would have been strong, but I think that touch of the moss does elevate it. I agree. And I love the just little details of the droplets down here too, sort of coming off the rocks there. Yeah, so worth logging the big old 100 to 400 along for this one. This is just incredibly blue river, like glacial water running through that whole valley. Just the way it would refract with the sunlight during the day, like similar to Michael's shot where we thought it was kelp. Yeah, it's just amazingly blue. And then on the way up,
you have to shoot straight down to keep a depth of field in the corners on these sort of shots. Like,
so I was at f22 and ISO 12.
Yeah. Okay.
So with water, you can basically just crank up the noise reduction as much as you want because there's no fine detail. So it'll actually doesn't really make a difference if you put the noise reduction just super high. So on the way in, this just shows how crazy New Zealand is. Even the mud glitters. Like this is literally mud and it's blue and it's glittering. And like, that's not fair. So this was, on the way into that big hike with the mountains. This is a little, beach that we stopped at that had some of these beautiful ripples. And I liked this patch that had this sort of almost like hook shape coming in from the left here, the way they sort of converged in to the middle was something I really enjoyed. And you can, this is the same sort of environment, but just further up. Again, you can see I'm trying to play with more silhouette and window sort of style compositions rather than necessarily leading lines, although we do still have like a little corner sort of sweep coming through here. But what grabbed my interest here initially was these sort of dead sticks, just like trunks just poking out of this opposite bank here. I got no idea what would be the case there, why they're like that.
Probably from a river flood, I'd say.
Yeah. And so yeah, they caught my interest initially, and then I sort of enjoyed the way that actually standing on my side of the bank, the way you could sort of frame it within those trunks. And I actually remember I was telling Michael I was really actively looking for some sort of shot with shaded trunks in front of me and a blue river behind it. And so this ended up being that.
We were walking the whole way through that valley. We were walking right up beside this river, constantly like seeing a scene like this, but it just not being quite right. So yeah, I'm glad you got the one that was quite right.
Yeah. So yeah, just another one of those sort of more dreamy style scenes, and very bright midday sort of light, but it just worked to bring out the colors here. This was a rock that both Michael and I shot. Again, this was on that hike in. Again, just opportunistic, intimate shooting. This was the pathway, the hike in. There was just this random rock in the middle of the path. And this was probably maybe about that big. And just in the middle of it had this perfect shadow of a fern. And I like stopped and was like, oh, that's cool. And I took a phone photo of it. I was like, I need to shoot this. So I spent maybe 5 minutes trying to shoot it. And then I showed Michael later, and he was like, "Oh, you shot it!" And so Michael had seen the exact same rock, and unfortunately didn't pull out the camera. But
I've like got to get to the destination mode, you know.
Yeah. So it was just one of those funny things. We just both had the same sort of in tune approach there while we were hiking. Just head down, and then we sort of transitioned to Fiordland from here. All the rest of this is around Will's local haunt. So this is a very popular spot, actually. A very popular south-facing view. And this branch has been photographed by quite a lot of people, but it was a very rainy, foggy, atmospheric day. The mountains were quite obscured. So we struggled a bit with any sort of wide-angle shooting on this day. But I found that looking in on this branch, this sort of lump poking up here just looks like some sort of like a heron or some sort of water bird perched upon it. And then these, this moss and stuff down here almost looks like lyrebird tail to me, just hanging off the tree. And then from there,
it's not easy to incorporate in shots. It's quite. I mean, I was standing there a few days ago. I was thinking, you've got to have a bit of imagination and a sense of design to bring it into a shot with a sense of balance.
Yeah, it's a beautiful run. We all notice the branch, but then you go compositionally, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a beautiful.
Yeah, so thank you guys. So yeah, rather than focusing on the mountains, I figured I'd focus on this branch, and then I sort of started to notice even more things that just worked out, like the way that these sort of both arched up in to sort of mirror the what's happened here? There we go. Like the sort of triangular shape at the top of it is sort of mimicked by these coming up here. And then I worked really hard to position myself in order to get this peak coming through this little gap down here as well, as like just a little Easter egg for looking closer. And I was tossing up whether to keep the lake in or cut it out. And I had someone give me feedback and to potentially try cutting it out. And I think cutting it out definitely focuses you in on the branch more. I find that the contextual clue that it gives really makes it for me. And that little bit of deliberate tension at the bottom of the image, I found just to be a really interesting part of it. I don't know if you guys feel like I should have cropped it out, but for me, I enjoy that element being in there.
I think it's important, actually. Yeah, it gives a bit of a sense of place and layering of depth, but without giving much visual space for it, and while still keeping the subject really clear.
Yeah. So I just reduced some sort of contrast. Like this was a bit darker. This sort of wind patch down here was a bit darker, so I just lightened that up so it had less sort of pull. But this again is probably one of my favorite images from the gallery, just because it feels like that new direction for me where I'm exploring silhouette and visual similes and shape and all that kind of stuff, and natural light and dark luminosity rather than trying to bring detail in everywhere. It just sort of felt like a genuine, it felt very personal to me. It felt like work I was creating for myself, not necessarily directly inspired by someone else. This is just a classic Fiordland rainforest scene. this is not far from that heron shot. Yeah, nothing really to speak here, but just big, epic, wonderful trees, lots of moss, lots of ferns. Yeah, and this is the third sort of 2x1 crop as well. That again, that was just sort of lots of sky gaps up above, then just lots more chaos down the bottom, but everything on the sides I felt was worth including. So yeah. Got a couple of little just roadside stops on the way back to Tianu. This one I named the Long White Cloud as a bit of a tip of the hat to New Zealand's colloquial name. That's just because we've got this long pale cloud here, and again the birds are real. So this is just on the way back from our accommodation, Michael. You probably remember this. We just pulled over, and there was, I think it was a long Rainbow Road. Is that what that, or Rainbow Avenue, or is there a road along there called like Rainbow?
No, there's a part of the river. There's a part of the river.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not far from that sort of area in sort of Tianu. And yeah, there's just rainbows and beautiful light happening everywhere. So we just pulled over and pulled out the telephotos and had some fun with that. This was actually shooting out the window of a moving car driving into Fiordland. So sorry to Michael, unfortunately didn't get the chance to shoot this one. Just a very fleeting moment. Yeah, just out the window with this amazing clouds coming in and reminding me of that painting of the creation of Adam with the sort of fingers touching in the middle. Yeah, it just looked like a really romantic painting, almost sort of style scene with the way the clouds are just rising up from the valley. Atmosphere above and below, as Will has quoted to me before. As a niche reference. Yeah, again, more just sort of classic New Zealand rainforest. And I tried to embrace the sort of chaos here. Some of my older rainforest work, I used to do a fair bit of cloning and trying to make it look perfect. But the rainforest just isn't perfect. It's messy. It's a chaotic environment, and there's dead stuff, and there's not all perfectly lush and green. And
pretty lush and green. This is about
it's definitely lush and green, but there's also a lot of dead stuff. And you got these ones down here. You got this big broken branch, which I easily could have cloned out if I wanted to. But it felt right to just sort of like there's order, but there's also chaos at the same time. And I liked this image for portraying that.
I'll tell you what's interesting, particularly interesting about this image to me. I feel like you're on a very, very fine line, and that the color separation is very, very minimal, but it's enough to give it allow you to roam, and the density of tone is very, very soft between front and back, but it's just enough to quietly pull you through the image. It's just this very, very delicate line you're leading here, which I think settles the chaos a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, it's definitely less color separation than I'd usually go for in a rainforest image. Like, yeah, again, 2-3 years ago, I might have deliberately cooled these ferns down further and maybe made these shadows a bit more blue and then the background a bit more yellow and all this kind of stuff. But I did subtly cool these ferns down a touch to sort of bring that in. But yeah, that's what I was trying to go for. So I'm glad that came across.
Yeah. It feels quite masterful in that regard, in a very understated sort of way. Yeah.
There's just a few sort of details along the Kepler track. So yeah, near Tianu, just some lovely rainforests, and we just had a very slow morning through here. We spent a good few hours on a really small portion of the track. I think I was like way behind Michael. I think our radios stopped working and I was just super zen mode, just getting in close on these details. There's like a light drizzle, but not too much rain to be overwhelming. And I was just trying to experiment a bit.
There was that one photo that you were absolutely frothing at the time, on the edge of the bank. I remembered about that.
I liked that shot. There was a couple of issues with the file that I struggled with processing it. And I also felt I couldn't really, with the way I presented the gallery, I felt it didn't fit with any other images. I would like to put that image out eventually. I don't quite make it into this gallery. But yeah, I do like that photo still. It'll make its way out eventually. Yeah.
Think about it. You're like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do still like it. So there was yeah, no, I won't talk about it now. It's hard to describe. But yeah, trying to play with some more sort of textural approaches, real high key. But yeah. And then yeah, we get to that incredible morning at the end of the trip. Yeah, so we got that light through the middle, and I like the sort of, you don't notice it at first, but the lake being in the middle of the photo here. I found the colors quite tricky actually to work with, but I think I'm pretty happy with how this came out. This is, yeah, one of my favorites from that morning. So this is basically, while we're in here, a squall, like as Will mentioned, a squall, sort of like a blizzard almost came through and just started blowing snow really quite hard. And you can see that in his YouTube video, actually, probably the moment I actually shot this.
Yeah.
And so that's not fog in the photo. That's just all snow in the air, blowing off the trees, blowing from the clouds. Seconds here was amazing. Like the amount of depth that came and then went in such short little bursts was really quite special. So I was just lucky. I just framed up this exact comp like without that sort of happening. And I was like, oh, this might work. There's a bit of, flow with that branch coming in from the top right to the bottom left, and this one counteracting it. And then it just started blizzarding on us. And I was like, just happened to be at the right time. It wasn't blowing into my lens. So I really, all I can say is I got lucky. Was in the right place at the right time, ready to shoot. So yeah, again, just handheld because I was having to go to my full sort of height to shoot this, and I didn't have time to set up the tripod, but still managed to get the sort of streaking snow coming through here. Yeah, and decided the high key approach sort of would best help with conveying that cold sort of look. But yeah, no, I really like this one as well.
Meanwhile, cut to me like frantically trying to change lenses and getting snow in my bag and like dumping down the back of my neck, and yeah.
I had that too as well, but yeah, just yeah, it was tough. It was really tough.
It was good fun.
Really good fun. This is another one of my favorites in the gallery. This is a very Peter Dombrovskis inspired composition with that sort of more 4x5-ish format. Not much sky, and then very sort of foreground heavy.
Absolutely, very much.
Yeah, I definitely had that in mind when I was trying to shoot this. And so Will's actually got a shot of this exact foreground patch of grass, but more looking off to my left here, and a much earlier stage of the morning. Which I think I saw that and was like, oh, I wonder how that looks in the camera now. I'm not trying to comp stop, but just I was curious. And then I came a little further down and saw this sort of background and just felt the visual flow of these grasses coming through just worked really nicely. Yeah, this little tuft coming through to fill in that bottom corner. So yeah, it was a lot of sort of reining in the bright highlights of the snow and making sure that was balanced. But yeah, again, one of my other favorite shots from the trip. For sure. Yeah, this is just one of those, like just a very little grove of those octopus like trees, and that light was really sort of glowing through at that point. I can't remember if this was pre squall or post sort of squall of fresh snow, but there's a bit of an Orton effect sort of look through the middle here, but that's actually just because my lens was sort of getting some internal condensation from the cold or whatever it was, and it was just giving everything a bit of a glowy look. And so I took that as just a little inbuilt dreaminess. But yeah, I just love the sort of warm glow that the sun was bringing in through here, framing. And yeah, it's
I love that cluster of trees on the left, It's like it's almost like tentacles coming out of the ground,
Yeah. So I think this is my second octopus themed name of the galleries. This one I titled Cephalopod, which is just the scientific name for octopus.
Did you get the dynamic range in a single capture bit? Or?
Yeah, this was a single capture. So I think my lens doing that sort of condensation, fogging up a little thing, actually softened the image a little bit. So it softened my shadows a touch. But then also because that's not direct sun here, and it was giving a lot of luminosity into here. So this isn't that far from the raw file. In terms of like, I've brought in a little bit of cool tones to the shadows, and I reined in some of the bright highlights in these gaps over here and stuff. But really the back of the camera didn't look all that different to this. So yeah. This one's very chaotic, but I enjoyed how encroaching this all feels. But then you can tell that it's not looking up. It feels like it's looking up, but it's actually looking out, because you've got this little reference of a tree sticking up through here, which means that then these are really all just coming in over the top in the same way that they're coming in from the bottom and the sides. So I quite liked that sort of element, and you can just get all this wonderful textures in these snow-laden branches, and the leaves.
This one, I feel like it would print very well, this one, with all the detail, like you just could look at it for such a long time.
Yeah. And I love that you can see the sort of green leaves underneath all the snow. Like it's just there's lots
and
of
the Silver Beach. What's so special about, and I would have told you boys 100 times, but the trees, the leaves are so small, so they're not really good for holding snow, which makes these moments even more special, because an hour after the sun is up properly, 90% of it's going to drop off those leaves. They're just so tiny, the beech tree leaves.
Yeah.
So it's just magical to be able to capture these types of mornings. It's because they don't come easy, that's for sure. This one really showcases it well, looking up at all the branches.
Yeah.
Especially on that right-hand side there, down the bottom right-hand.
Yeah.
How thick that is.
It got a little bit of those icicles sort of hanging down here as well.
Yeah.
So here you can see how quickly it melts off, just to, immediately after Will saying that. This is the sun sort of hitting these trees. You've got these ones in the shade that still have a bit of snow on them, and these ones in the sun, these are just like the last remnants hanging on in there.
Exactly.
And so this was just like right at the very end of the day, of the morning, as we're getting back to the car, and I just loved the sort of interaction between these two trees here. You can see some more patches in the shade having a bit more snow as well. And then this was just the final morning, just off the side of the road with Will again. Nice telephoto shot, very easy, nice calm shoot, but I just love the layering. So I titled this one Transition Zone, because I liked how the sort of no snow, a bit of snow, and then a lot of snow, and just perfectly divided by those sort of mimicking each other, sort of lines in there that bounce each other back in through from the sort of sea level. So this is actually a lake all around this sort of island, which has water behind it, and then it hits this mountain wall on the other side, and then this is the really top distant part of the mountain up here. Just cool layering. And I initially wanted this little patch of atmosphere to go away, so I had a clean shot, but I actually kind of like it now as a bit of an extra element. So that's the gallery. There's a little bit of BTS as well. We did a fair bit of exploring. This was just a random limestone gorge that we found. Got Michael crouching in up here that we didn't end up shooting. There's all these beautiful ones through here. Got a bit of BTS from that sort of sunset at Tscharke Beach as well. It's actually really quite lovely light too. This is that first evening where we're trying to capture that archway. It's just frozen. You can just see how much spray there was there.
Rankin.
Very wet walk in, and that pool got very, very deep in there. But it was a really special one.
What a stunner.
I know it's pretty late
now.
Well,
thanks so much, Ben.
Beautiful. I'm going to take off now, but pleasure, boys. Well done. Beautiful work. Thanks for having me on, guys.
It's been a pleasure.
Catch you, boys.
Till next time, Will.
See ya.
Yeah, mate.
Cool. That's the gallery. Thank you everyone for checking it out. Appreciate it. For anyone who's left any feedback, and if you haven't seen Michael's work, definitely go look at it on a website, on your computer, on a bigger screen where you can see better detail than Zoom or Instagram. Some really creative work in there too.
Absolutely.
Great for your stuff.
How much longer are you there?
Thoroughly enjoyed that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Paul. How much longer are you over there for?
Oh, how long's a piece of string, mate? That's bachelor life, mate. There's no one waiting for me at home, so I can do whatever I like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wonderful being home. I just shot 21 days straight, I think, or some days 20 hours in the day. So I've got a
Wow.
lot to go through. I think I pushed 13,000 images, I think, the last,
Wow.
which is saying a lot for landscapes, and
Yeah.
huge variety. So I'm going to try and put some of my stuff together, which is going to include a bit of jet boating and kayaking and 3 aerial flights. So it'll be a little bit more, a little bit different from Ben and Michael's set from this particular trip. But I would say it's probably the most productive landscape trip I've done, arguably in my life, from
Wow.
even
It's a
from
huge statement.
ground level.
Mm.
It is a big statement. And the workshop that I did for 10 days, every day I was just like, you've got to be joking. Every single day it's like, you've got to be joking. You've got to be joking. And it just kept getting better. And I thought, I've used up all my luck. And then I did another 12 days straight, which basically finished almost with the Aurora as well. And I was like, you've got to be joking. Just keep.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was the last straw almost. Yeah.
It's so good, mate. So good. Glad you're getting good stuff over there. Super keen to see the shots.
The fact that nature just gifted me with some of the more incredible moments of my life. And but anyway, looking forward to sharing them. And I know he's got some work from afar if he's got time to put together as well. But I've certainly got more than enough to complement what you guys have put forward, and just celebrate my love for my homeland as well.
You may have noticed from the thumbnail, we're originally going to try and cram in all of our photos at the one time, but we thought better of that, and that definitely allowed Ben and Michael to reflect on their trip a lot better. So I'm glad that we made that decision to do that.
Very happy about
that. Yeah, I did a trip in 2020, so I've done a few trips over there, so it'd be nice to share a little bit as well. But definitely nothing of the caliber that's been put before us, but that's okay. It's all part of the fun. And yeah, so we better look at signing off. We're running a bit over time to our normal schedule. It's great for Will to be with us for so long, and Michael, it's nice and late for you there too. So thanks for putting in the hard yards.
Yeah, thanks for staying with me, mate. Appreciate it.
We'll do a couple plugs as well. Of course, we've got our TLP workshop in the Northeast that's you're welcome to join. So if you're looking to learn with Paul, Ben and I all about landscape photography from the start to finish of the whole process, then do go to talkinglandscapephotography.com and check that out. And there's plenty of information on the website there about what we cover. It's extremely comprehensive, and no doubt you'll pick up a whole bunch of amazing information and take you on your landscape photography journey. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, not much like it, and a beautiful time of year to do a winter retreat and be a bit more reflective and depthful about why you do things, and fill in the gaps of the parts of your workflow you may be less confident with. It's going to be pretty damn special, actually.
Yeah, no, can't wait. So awesome. And there's a few other workshops and things we're doing. We're not going to labor you with all of those things now, but do check the email. If you're not signed up to our mailing list, just check the link at the top of the YouTube page, or go to talkinglandscapephotography.com as well. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Do you want to do a sign off, Ben?
I think I've done enough talking, but yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
No, that's great. Well, we'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks for tuning in, and catch you in the next one. See you guys.
Everyone.
Bye.
See you, fellas.
Thanks again, Michael. It was awesome to have you on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Much fun. Great time.